facility and maintaining different things within honor. So we're gonna ask everybody if we could stand first and foremost so we could do the preamble. All right. For those of you that are comfortable, repeat after me. For those of you that are not, just stand in silence. It's cool. We the people.
We the people
of the Aboriginal Republic of North America.
of the Aboriginal Republic of North America.
Asserting our natural Aboriginal rights.
Asserting our natural Aboriginal rights.
As the oldest recorded.
As the oldest recorded.
Aboriginal Indigenous people of the Americas.
Aboriginal Indigenous peoples of the Americas.
Consisting of.
An
Aboriginal Union of Indigenous People.
An Aboriginal Union of Indigenous people.
Living in accord with natural law.
Living in accord with natural
The
law.
law of our ancestors.
The law of our ancestors.
Do hereby recognize all nationals.
Do hereby recognize all nationals
Of the Aboriginal Republic of North America.
of the Aboriginal Republic of North America
As a unified community.
as a unified community.
Establish our divine right.
Establish our divine right
To self-rule.
to self-rule.
A common defense of our nation.
Common defense of our nation.
A complete unified will.
A complete unified will
For progress and prosperity.
for progress and prosperity
By and for our people.
by and for our people.
Establishing justice.
Establishing justice
By natural law and equality.
by natural law and equality
And complete autonomy as a nation.
and complete autonomy as a nation.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Good stuff. Peace, everyone. Peace, everyone.
Peace.
Good to see you guys. Definitely missed you on last week. I had to take a quick vacation.
There you go, brother. Take one.
I need to get away for a minute. I'm working with multiple businesses, working with people on a consistent basis. Sometimes you got to breathe for a second.
Come on,
So
brother.
I had a chance to go out, and I went to, I flew out to Las Vegas, but then I drove from Vegas to California. And the landscape alone was just very refreshing, very beautiful. Had a chance to go to Muir Woods and visit the redwood tree, redwoods out in the California area, in San Francisco area. It's amazing how you can stand inside of a tree and literally take refuge. It was amazing to see. It was a beautiful sight. Got a chance to hug some trees. It's amazing. You stand next to a tree and it's like 4, 5, 6 times your body mass, meaning size. I mean, that was just like astounding. To walk in, to be able to smell the fresh air, to breathe and feel like your lungs are being filled with nothing but clean air. This is a beautiful experience. So I suggest everyone take a time out and go out sometimes, even if it's not in California, but wherever it is, go to the woods and just visit nature. We went on a 2-hour nature walk. No, it was actually about 3 hours. We did about 2.5 miles. Just walking through and taking pictures, and I never realized that the redwoods are actually within the family of pine trees, and they grow from these little ferns. You would never know it's an actual tree until you actually go and visit and you realize what's happening. They had one that they showed it started in 960 A.D. and it didn't die until 1930. So that's a hell of a lifespan. To see something like that and see the growth with it. We just got finished going over the preamble. For those of you that don't know it, we definitely would suggest that you go ahead and get the book, Aboriginal Republic of North America, the Constitution, Natural Law, Principles, and Declaration of Independence for the Aboriginal Republic of North America. The book, I believe, is $20.
Yes.
$20. It gives you some good background into the various ways in which ARNA is governed, so that you have a better understanding of exactly how we function as a group of people. So we're going to be getting into some information for you today. But before we do, as I said, we're passing around a sign-in sheet. Please make sure you sign in and give your donation so that we can consistently move forward with everything we do. Hopefully everybody brought a pen and pad. You know how we are. We take copious notes.
Yes.
So that we can be able to not only internalize the information for ourselves personally, but also be able to share the information with others as you move forward within life. So of course, as you guys know, for this month we're covering the Economic Bible. Hopefully everybody has their Economic Bible with them. For those of you that do not, it is ready and available for you. I believe the cost is $75.
Cut down to 40 for our Holy Day season.
Okay. All right, so since we're in Ramadan season and people are looking to really master information, we have a special discounted rate. Special discounted rate. It's only $40. It's normally $75. That's a major, major discount. For those of you like myself that paid $75, a little envious, but in a good way. Here's the deal, though. I was always taught, that when the iron's ready, you need to strike. So we struck immediately so that we could get the information. So I don't mind the fact that we got a chance to support. No matter what level we get a chance to support on, we should always be willing, ready, and able. For those of you that have a cell phone, if you could do me a favor and pull them out and put it in the vibrate position or on the off position, because we don't want to interrupt our neighbor from hearing the information that's about to be shared with you. Once again, take some copious notes. We appreciate today we have Chief Ali with us. So he's going to be sharing some information from the Economic Bible. And without further ado, for those of you that don't know him, he's the gentleman that was responsible for starting Aboriginal Republic of North America, helping to lead the charge forward in establishing a unified community here within our nation that resides within a nation. So a nation within a nation.
Yes, yes.
It's all good. But so without further ado, Chief Ali.
Thank you, Brother Troy,
brother.
for that wonderful introduction. Thank Brother Troy for also stepping up to the plate to take charge of this jurisdiction when there was opportunity for him to do so, and he's been consistent at providing very resourceful information to our people, to the people who are online. I see we got people coming on very fast. Thank you for your patience in waiting for us to get started. Today, we're slated to do some rebuttals about a conference that took place, but our focus will be on the things that we talk about in regards to economic reality coming from the indigenous paradigm. So last week I had a wonderful opportunity given by Sinetta to participate in the Kemetic War Conference. Over 500 plus people showed up to the National Black Theater, so it was a good showing. Over, I think maybe as reported, 1,300 people were streaming online. People were streaming from Africa, from Europe, from Canada, from all over the world. And so what that let me know is that young people in the United States of America are capturing the minds of people globally and have an opportunity and an ability to do something new. We're at a new nexus point, which means that, what I mean by that is, through the technology that is available, through creative, artful ways of expressing education, information, etc., we're at another point where we can make some major changes in the society. And that's a great thing. However, in that same breath, we have some very critical things to discuss about how to move forward. Now, people from my generation, 40 and under 30s, whatever, late 40s, we come out of the so-called hip-hop generation. So when we think about the ways that we express ourselves, some of the older generations, 60s and 70s, might not necessarily understand how we always present or do things. So we created this environment of debates. And so some people think it's very unproductive, it's niggerish, y'all cussing at each other, there's people all over the world, and it is that. It absolutely is. It gets out of hand sometimes. But we are out of hand generation. We're out of hand generation just on the fact that we have almost no institutions that have been the guiding force to raise us up, except for the remnants of institutions that were collapsing that came before us. When I say remnants of institutions, I'm talking about UNIA, Nation of Islam. All those things were going on the decline when we were being born. Black Panthers, all of those things. And what we were born into is the pimp scene, the drug scene, crack, etc. Blight in our communities. That's what we were born into. And so we had to come up with some very innovative ways of expressing our story, because like those who came before us, we realized from going to school, whatever, our story wasn't being told. And so hip-hop became a way for us to express our story through a creative means. All right? B-boy, breakdancing, the B-box, all of that, MCing, DJing, all of that came from that concept. or came from that reality. And the concept grew from that. All right? And so we created something, right? And then when you look at it today, what's happened to it? What's happened to hip hop? This is my lesson of the day.
Colonialized.
It was co-opted by someone who had a business structure. Regardless of how you look at it, regardless of what they did to it, regardless of what was asserted, it was co-opted by somebody who had a business structure, and because we did not have a business structure, we did not have the ability to save it. Now it is completely in the hands of other people. And it is a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's a multi-billion-dollar international industry. I've heard some of the best authorities on black music say that black music is the only real international music, meaning black music from black people in America. The only real international music, which means that we rule the creativity in entertainment.
Exactly.
Correct.
Which is a $1 trillion industry.
Yes, it is.
Now, what I'm going to offer you today is two parts. It's something that's based on business structure, and it's something that's based on education. Because education is what empowers us to move with some level of proficiency. And our problem is we're not moving with levels of proficiency, and it's because we have subordinate levels of education, even if you have a PhD. All right? In 2012, I invited, at the time, what I considered 3 of the most brilliant people in our communities to our annual Aboriginal Summit, right down at Freedom Theater. And 1, I wanted to learn and see. 2, I wanted to try to get these individuals to come together under a body politic to help our people deal with the most critical areas of our needs. One of the speakers that I invited was Dr. Claude Anderson, who I considered and still consider to be partly one of our greatest political scientists of all time.
Yes.
All right? So we invited Dr. Anderson. The next person I invited was a man named Dr. Mustafa Ansari, who I consider to be one of our greatest legal experts in respect to international law and remedy for our peoples. Dr. Mustafa Ansari came and did a presentation on creating a plebiscite and those other things. And then the next brother I invited was Brother Terrence Miller, who is an agriculturalist and a farmer. Now, why did I invite a farmer, an international lawyer, and a socio-political scientist to our Aboriginal Summit? Because those are the 3 areas that we need help with in order to get off the ground. We need to be able to feed ourselves and go into manufacturing from the production phase of what grows off of a farm. We need legal and law experts to help us form jurisdictions, and we need political scientists who can do the analysis to give us the strategy of how to move in those laws.
First person you said?
Dr. Claude Anderson,
Claude Anderson.
Dr. Mustafa Ansari, and Terrence Miller. All right? And so, what I also found out, and this is a point of critique for all 3 of them, from that moment, is that we, ARNA, represented a small body politic for them to participate in so their message would not be theoretical. So whether they participated in ARNA directly or borrowed from the template to get something started, their messages will stay theoretical with no support if they don't get that kind of thing going. And so what I found out is that our people want authority from white people to do this thing. That's what I found out. That's what I found out. Otherwise, they would just create the thing and operate it. We want authority, and the reason why we want authority from white people is we think that they're more educated than us and more proficient. And the fact is that they are to some of us, but not all of us.
Right.
That's important to know. But black academia, black political scientists, whatever you want, they are looking for white people to give them the door open to do what they need to do for their people. And that is a problem. So my offer today, in rebuttal to some of the things that I saw at the conference, I'm going to lay out clearly how easy it is to unify black people under something that is functional. How easy it is. All it would take is maybe a few months of conferences on the subject with some proficient ways to implement some very practical things, and then you will have an explosion in North America. Literally. Literally. But one of the reasons that that is not happening is because not enough black leaders are actually calling for it. Name me 5 black leaders that are calling for us all to come under one government body politic. Name me 5.
Crickets.
We name one?
Crickets.
Yeah, exactly.
How about one?
Name it. Name them. They're saying, listen, how we solve the problem is we form a body politic, we all come under it, and then we operate. Now the second question is, why aren't they doing it? Everybody's not a sellout. So we got the sellout category. We ain't got to talk about that. Everybody's not a sellout. It's either a lack of education or lack of belief that it can actually happen. So the faith and confidence in our people, which is key. Because you can't be all these great things in history and not be great now.
Come on.
All right? We can't be pyramid builders 5,000 years ago and not be able to build things now. We've already proven that we could do that. All right? And so now we have to look at detail on what are the core factors that are stopping our people from uniting under this thing. And I think that I got some very key ingredients to just explaining the basics of it. All right? And so I'm going to critique that conference and we're going to lay out some things. First of all, I'm going to give a definition of economics from page 7 of the Economic Bible. I'm using this. All right? Economics. Because the conference was about education on black history. And what I'm saying is that the people who held the conference in respect to education on black history don't understand the connection between education and economics. There's an intricate connection.
Yes, exactly.
All right? Especially in the re-educational phase that we're in. Because if not, you're going to turn out like hip-hop did. You're going to create some beautiful things. Other people are going to co-opt them. And then you're going to look 20 years down the road like, wow, that was $1 trillion idea that just got stolen again.
Mm-hmm.
So there's rules to this thing. All right? So let's define economics first. Economics is the proper identification of resources and the proper utility of those resources or production of new resources based on skill sets inherited generationally. Economics is the use of these resources and skills for the present productivity, not past productivity. There's nothing to talk about black history, past productivity, and not bring it up today. You have to talk about present productivity and future progress of an individual, family, or society. If indigenous peoples in America grade themselves as a whole in this area, economics, they will find that white males control all of the production of root resources of things that they're using in production. So now we have to look at economics, understand what it is, and then generate a new economics. Claude Anderson says we need a black business district.
Exactly. Yep.
And he's right. But are we going to register those black businesses downtown at the Municipal Services Building and hinge them to all of the things that encumber them? All of the taxing agents, the permit agents, the federal taxing. So now if you have somebody like Arna there, we can say, yeah, we do need a black business district, but we need a new paradigm for generating the start of black businesses.
Exactly.
But if you need white permission, you're not going to listen to that. Because you're going to say, how did a nigga figure out how to start businesses without white people's permission? Is it legal? Am I going to jail?
Right.
I've literally opened thousands of businesses and not one person has went to jail for EIN numbers and business articles since the inception of it back in 2005. Not one person. Thousands of tax-exempt trusts, other types of entities. We hadn't had one legal problem. So we've proven over a decade that we could do it. Now we have to figure out how to get all those businesses, who, if they're nationals and unnationals, to come together. How do you do that? Simple answer. Every black organization, whether they want to be a part of ARNA or not, they don't have to be a part of ARNA, they have to go from being a black organization registered inside of a non-indigenous system to being a black organization registered inside of indigenous system. What does that look like? They have to start something called a plebiscite. All of them. Nation of Islam, UNI, they all need their own plebiscites as indigenous institutions in response to the injury that has been placed upon them institutionally. All of them. They all need a formula. We can email it to them right now. If they all did that, every black institution did that, that would remove the hedge of all of the entities that are economically encumbering them. All right? That's making them take donations over and over again from groups of people inside of the institution without the ability to set those people free. They're captive sheep with no plan. So a plebiscite is them coming together to say, we are an indigenous people that have been robbed of the ability to create our institutions in violation of international law, and these are the steps that we're going to take to reform those institutions. So now Muhammad's University of Islam, whatever money it takes, it owes nothing to the IRS. Whatever Mosque Mariam makes, it owes nothing to the IRS. And you don't have to be a 501c3 to do it. Because once you get the 501c3 permission, the IRS can say, I'm taking it back. We want to show you how to start something where you don't take it back. Well, what does this have to do with the Commanded War Conference? I'm getting there. What does this have to do with 500 plus people coming together, people on 4 continents watching young people talk about their history? What does it have to do with it? Let me show you. All right, so we got 2 slides here going on. Let me get the people online first, and then we can see this. All right, so I have here, indigenification equals practical actions. You cannot talk about African history 1,000 years ago, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 years ago and solve people's problems today, unless you can extract something from it in principle or in reality to change something. And we need a new education and a new economy on how these things mean anything today. It goes nothing for you to call yourself a Kimite, a Hebrew Israelite, a Muslim, a Moor, or Aboriginal, whatever, all these things, unless it has practical application in the economy of people. And again, economy deals with the resources of people. All right? So, let's see if I can move this. We need a new education, excuse me. Try to do this right. We need a new education, there we go. We need a new education. A new education equals a new economy. I'm going to prove how that is a reality. All right? Give me a moment so I can get my folk online, right? All right? So here's a library, right? Here's a library. Anybody got a library at home, books at home? All right? All right. If you have a library at home, then you know it's filled with authors who write things down to either tell a story, to give advice, to tell people how to do whatever. It could be instructional, it could be a whole bunch of things. And we have a lot of authors here, right, in our community. But one book I'm going to pull out, and I'm going to show the people in here, and I'll show it online. Why isn't this coming up right? Let's see. There we go. All right. I have a book here. It's called The Issuer's Guide to Pipes. Who in this classroom knows what a pipe is in economy?
A money conduit.
Absolutely. It is a money conduit. It's a money conduit. It absolutely is. But okay, let's be more specific. What does the acronym PIPE stand for in economics? Now, this is the most important conversation of the 20th and 21st century on the planet in regards to economics. And the acronym PIPE stands for something, and I'm going to show how it has connection to us coming to talk about Nile Valley civilization. It's called the PIPE. The book is called The Issuer's Guide to Pipes by Stephen Dresner. Stephen Dresner. All right? I'm going to show the people online in a minute. Issuer's Guide to Pipes. So let me tell you what a pipe is. PIPE stands for Private Placement of Public equity. Fancy word for the government has resources in the form of the businesses and its citizens, and we're trying to figure out how to get private funding, investment, operations economically to make it all run. Private placement of public equity. That's what a pipe is. And I'm going to give you an example because these things have been operating in the United States of America. They operate today. Real simple things, all right? Pipe. Private placement of public equity. So what is a pipe? Social Security is a pipe. A Social Security fund is a pipe. What does the pipe look like? The government will mandate that if you get income, you must pay into this government-sanctioned fund.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for the purpose, came in the 1930s, to make sure that when people retire, they don't have the situation that went on with the stock market crash and the Great Depression, that old people who retire will have money. We're doing something good for the citizens. However, when you sign up for Social Security, what they don't tell you is they reserve the right to have private placement of the public equity, which means that J.P. Morgan Chase can take the funds in the Social Security Trust Fund and invest in foreign investment to build its businesses, its structure, only requiring it to flip the money to pay some of it back so those people can get paid when they retire. Right. So why does J.P. Morgan get to do that, but the average person can't say, well, I don't want to pay into Social Security. Give me all my money. Mm-hmm. How does that happen? And what does it have to do with a conference of black people talking about African civilizations? The first issue is because we don't know our status and contract, we don't know how to get that money and say it's mine, put it in my pocket. A people of our political status and level of education and finance don't know how to do that. Second issue, if you go to Egypt and you go on tour, all right, and you look at the Luxor Temple, you look at all of the papyruses in the museums, that's called public equity. Because the government of Egypt controls the temples, the museums, and all of those things. However, it's private companies, private universities, private groups of anthropologists, archaeologists who control what goes on there. And so now they have a financial agreement with the state so that these people can go in. When they go in as archaeologists, they can go into places in the temples you can't go. They're controlling the books and other stuff that's published into Egyptology. And so now on the back end, we're having a conference about what they do, and we have never researched, investigated if we're the real people, or we have Africans who are the real people. How come if we have proof that these things belong to an indigenous people whose descendants are still alive, how come we have no equity in it? How come Zahi Hawass, who is an Arab, can be the head of the museums and the antiquities and other things, a part of a board, and there's not one African who's a part of the board? Not one. I don't know one African company that is contracting with the museums to make money off of the tours and all the other things, even though all right on the wall is our people. So now we have a religion that has been created. Black people can study African history, but they can't benefit financially off of it. Arabs and Europeans are benefiting financially off of it. And so now, if you're going to have a Kemetic War Conference, you have to declare war on the right people. How are you going to declare war that everybody must bow to the Nile Valley and none of the other religions and other groups of people deserve to exist, and you haven't even stepped to the people who you are using the information from, who are making all the money? You're sounding more like a preacher. You know how preachers do? They come to the black community and they demand that you bow to their system, and then the system is corrupt, and the people they're reading about Jesus, whoever, step to the system, and they won't step to the system. They're stepping to you, telling you you must pay them or you're going to hell. That's what the conference was about. So if you have 500 people who paid $25 to come in, you made a nice piece of money. A few $1,000s. You made the money off the people. But you also declared war on the people. So if there was a Christian in that audience, if there was a Muslim in that audience, if there was a Moor in that audience, if there was somebody claiming Aboriginal, you're telling them your system is not correct. You must respect the supremacy of Nile Valley civilization. That's what you insinuated, some of you, most of you. So now I'm looking at the educational framework in the young people who are coming up, and I'm saying y'all about to make the same mistakes that other people made in the past. And you're not focusing on the practical things that apply. And so now, let me get some critiques, because I'm going to go into private equity and, public equity and private placement. Because this is the system that is being used against you. What I'm telling you is, you can do it. You can take your public equity, place it into your private pocket, and figure out how to build your own community. All you have to do is redirect the economy and take control of the education. You control the educational processes, it's going to lead to outputs that go into every venture of life. Economics, defense and intelligence, health, law, whatever it may be, you can control those areas of your life which you're not controlling now. But you need a new education. So what type of education do you need? You need this type of education. This is a constitution to operate in indigenous body politic. Whether you're doing it with honor or not, like I said, every black organization needs to be converted into a plebiscite and to operate for the institutional integrity of the black organization. Otherwise, you are wasting the people's time and taking their resources. Second of all, we say the black dollar does not operate circularly and circulate enough in the black community. The issue is you don't have anything for it to circulate into. Because if most of the institutions and businesses are started and encumbered through municipal, secretary of state, all of those things that are controlled by bond companies, then as soon as you have the idea to start economy, you go right to the white man. Which means that you start in the negative. Then you go to a bank for a small business loan. Then you get more in the negative. And now if your idea is not good enough, your business is probably going to falter in 3 years. So some of these black institutions, churches, whatever, if they can start a plebiscite, then they can start on good footing where they're not starting off losing money, they're starting off circulating the black dollar. Because now we can show you how to start your own business registration in the UNIA, Nation of Islam, Black, whoever you may be. ASCAP, whatever you may be. We can show you how to start it like we did in Army. So now all you're doing is reproducing the cell in your own jurisdiction, your own indigenous area. And so now all the money for your businesses being started will go and cycle inside of people who you give jobs to carry out the activity. Now you got jobs and circulating money that is not leaving. That's what you call currency. It's flowing in a circle. Right now your lights are cut off.
Right.
And you begging somebody to turn the lights on.
Right.
When you're standing there with reservoirs of energy yourself that are being directed out to parasites. So tell me a better idea than to have every black organization converted into its own plebiscite so it can start its own business structure, they can get their own EIN, start their own articles, and now they got immediately jobs and they got money that's circulating. Otherwise, as soon as you start the idea of business, you also start the idea of a parasite at the same time by doing the regular model that you have now. So now we need this discussion. See, we can end all discussions. I don't want to talk about your religion. I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about how you can set up a business framework for what institution that you're in. If you're married, you got a family, you still need this discussion. What do you and your wife or what do y'all do together? You see what I'm saying? If you're a church, how come the church can't start its own business registration? How come the church cannot start its own tax-exempt autonomous operation? Fire the preacher. If you're a mosque or whatever you may be, have this discussion. All right? Then we can go to other levels of education. This economic Bible, just laying down some very basic principles. This is our study tool of where we're getting this information from. But look, if we write the books, they're in our library.
That's right.
And if we start something that becomes a commodity that is on high demand, that means people have to come to us to get the formulas. And we can decide whether to give it to them or whether not to give it to them. And if we give it to them, we'll give it to them for a servant is worthy for his or her hire. This is our fee.
Our fee.
This is now I'm talking to the non-indigenous people now. See, now you have to flip the economic table. If you got something valuable, non-indigenous people, they don't know nothing about how to deal with the IRS or tax exemption. We do. You want an indigenous business? Sure, we can start it off. Which one do you want? Trust, whatever. Your fee is, you have a balloon fee. The indigenous people pay 100, you pay 1,000. You're gonna start a family trust, you're gonna start all this stuff. All right? That's what you can do. You can change the library. All right? Then you can renegotiate what the real Aboriginal history is. It will look great in 10 years for Arna to put a lien on some pyramids. Like, no, we start off slow. First, we have the Aboriginal University and we send our experts in and we catalog what's actually there because it's still there. Then we say, wait a minute, the people who are now controlling it are not the original controllers. Now let me break this down to you, how this is.
Come on.
See, we have to study. We already, the template has already been raised. Write this down. Native American Graves Protection Act. Native American Graves Protection Act. That's a real act that was signed into law by your United States Congress. And what it says is, if you have the remains of some native group in some place, the federal government or nobody can hold priority. It is held in trust by the people who actually who it applies to. But this is what the Native Americans, they're slick. When they want to send their anthropologists in now, they file lawsuits against the universities because they don't want it uncovered that the bones actually belong to black people. That's a current thing that's happening right now. So what I mean by putting the lien is, if we file a court action and say, no, we want to see because we don't know if these people are the actual owners of it. And then the bones come up, it's like, can y'all get off my land, please? Literally. Literally. Remedy and recourse in the case is reacquiring the land to its real indigenous inhabitants. Thank you.
Boy, oh boy.
Y'all want to start some controversy? Let's start some real controversy.
Yes.
Because all these mounds, Cahokia, and all these places, this stuff belongs to us. They got bones under these things that are 7 feet tall. I ain't never seen a Native American 7 feet tall. Not the ones that would claim it to be that man. I seen Shaquille O'Neal. You know what I mean? I seen all of the brothers that we know. I seen LeBron James. All right. I read the records when the Spanish came there, and it was like, oh, he's the tallest man we ever seen in our life. Who are these people? They're you. Go ahead, you have a statement.
No, everything's there. When it comes down to presently, in Philadelphia, we were talking about that when we went on the tour. Based upon, I know, even right down the street from me, it was known that was a burial ground for our people.
Right.
Yet they built a whole community on it and said they were going to reserve the burial ground. They weren't going to touch the burial ground. They were going to build around it. I know that's some bull.
Right.
But they built directly on it. So when the encumbrances are there, meaning the building structures, but the land really belonged to us, do we then gain the structures that are built as well?
It depends, because those are called what you call fixture filings. So that would be a case where if they've made improvements upon the land and there's a value to the land, then they get to keep some level of equity. So it would look like this. Either you give us a check for our land and then we can go somewhere else, or you get off of it, and whatever the equity is in it, if you had a certain amount of equity in it, then the county or whoever the entity is that gave you the ability to get access to it, they owe you money. County, state, whoever it is that offered the parcel of land to you, which will be the recorder of deeds via City of Philadelphia and County of Philadelphia. We don't owe you nothing. This is what the Empress was doing, but she didn't have a business team. She claimed 70,000 acres of land that was reserved to her great-grandfather, and the president, she has the letters, the president said, well, listen, we don't have no authority over it. That has to be taken up by the state of Louisiana. Then the state of Louisiana said, we don't have any authority over it. You got to go to the federal government.
Yeah, sure.
And she's like, well,
Yeah,
we going down to take the land and it's ours. So she went and filed the deeds and did all this stuff, and she got a part of it, but she didn't have a business team. So they ended up doing some other stuff. They was doing some UCC stuff and some other stuff, and she got caught up into that. Then she got old. Then she died. Now her son is there. Nobody has even the small area of space that she left, and the grants are still there that go to that family. So now you have to have a business team. You need lawyers. You need other people around who can be proficient. Otherwise, you're going to shop outside of your community, and that's always going to lead to implosion.
Yeah, that's right.
So now, again, education equals economics. You have to have the people who are qualified, and then you can move forward. So that's why we're in here doing jurist training and health training and all these certifications, because those are the things that we actually need. All right? New health. All right? Listen. See, we have to recognize that everything ancestral is not proficient. Because some of our ancestors were crazy and some of them were proficient. All right? And so, with that in mind, we have to be able to vet history properly. I'm going to come to this. But some of our people had eating practices and dietary practices that were against their melanin. Literally. And when you get into that kind of activity, when you begin to disturb the electrical fields in the brain and the body based on overconsumption of things that are not designed for you, it makes the populace of indigenous people crazy. Which is what's happening today. We have all kind of psychological issues in our community, and a big part of it is we are loading our bodies up with things that are not its natural fuel. And so we have to have our own assessment, and it's not going to be based on the standard American diet. They have you believing in things like HIV, which it doesn't even exist, based on their own top scientists. But now it's an epidemic that doesn't exist. But what's behind it? Money. The fees for the tests. The amount of grants given from the federal government to carry out these fake tests. All right? The corresponding labor that's generated usually for people outside our community to be the health experts, the counseling experts for those particular things. And we again become, because we are miseducated. So now we need a critical mass of people that are educated that can be an example or shining examples. Various groups who are educated. So we need to talk about health. All right? Some of the pharaohs drank beer, which is a fermented wheat. This is in the pyramid text. That they were drinking fermented beer. That means you was high. On the throne. That ain't cool. You can't perform with Maya if you high off of fermented barley. That don't go together. Now you just get the pyramid text and read them. Certain kings were drinking, it literally says fermented beer. If I was up here with some OE, you would look at me like I was crazy. But because it's a pharaoh, you give him an out. How come the people who translate the text didn't bring that to you? I ain't never heard nobody in holding up Nile Valley say Osiris was high. He was drunk in the pyramid text. It's there. It's there. All right, so we need to take some assessments. All right. So check this out. I'm going to read this, and this is my critique. This is a big black event that happened. This is my critique of it. On December 13th in Harlem, this was last week, in New York, over 500 young folk. These are people who are literally young people from our community gathered to hear presentations from black leaders. Thousands of others viewed online from all over the world. You had people from London watching, people from West Africa watching, people from Canada, people from the Caribbean watching us present. A group of black, and now I'm about to set some critiques, so don't trip. A group of black history set trippers. You know, somebody when they set tripping, you know, you got the red on, and then you got the blue on, and you like, yo, son, don't come on my block. You come on my block, we gonna have it. That's set tripping. So now we are turning black history into set tripping. So set trippers gathered to crown a 4,000-year-old black civilization as the crown of black history, and dare anyone to challenge the authoritarian powers of ancient Egypt. That's what's being promoted. Now, keep in mind everything I said about money and finance prior to what I just getting into the subject. This was not new information being disseminated, all right? In fact, it was repeats and clips of scholars from 100 years ago, 50 years ago, and 25 years ago. The conference ended by two sad brothers about to fight over whether atheism or believing in God was right. This is before thousands of people on the international circuit. You got this kind of stuff going on. They have a conference, a panel, and the brothers about to fight over atheism and God. In front of the live stream. You might as well just be UFC and go hardcore. You might get more viewers. Not only was the conference another waste, but the information in the conference was outdated, flat out incorrect, and cannot lead the indigenous world to anything except following flawed examples of this new crop of leaders. Pretty soon, just like we led the world with hip-hop, niggas will be warring in Africa over whether Nile Valley heritage is right, whether Moorish heritage is right, whether Hebrew heritage is right, all right? Just like their counterparts in America. You ever seen people on other continents try to mimic our culture? You know what I mean? So they start wearing their heads back, they start wearing the bandanas, they start wearing all this stuff. Because we lead the world. So pretty soon they're going to start doing what they see now. All right? You're going to start seeing us literally. Since we always led the world, we will lead it again. All right? So, points. Teaching feel-good history to black people has expired. Teaching feel-good history to black people has expired. That's for children. You know, the children, you want them to feel good about black history, you give them all the black books, and you teach them about their history, and they feel great. They start seeing all these images and things that they did on the planet. That's great, but when you become adult, you're supposed to have adult conversation. We're not here to talk about pyramids today and how great we already know that. This is what this story is about. We get all the books, and this is a library. Literally, we can take them into our community where people who don't have the knowledge, or take them to our children and infuse them with love for black history. That's what we can do. All right? Now, check this out. If 500 plus people are in the room, know what we could have done? We could have said, listen, everybody in here, if you can, donate $100. We have a business that's already started. That means we would have accumulated $50,000. We could have put a school in Harlem which has no schools that are teaching the things that are being taught at this conference in the way that they're being taught. You could have started a school that day. Instead, a few people left out with money, a fight almost broke out, and 500 people got to see vendors. That's niggonometry at its finest. That's niggonometry. All right? So, listen, you could have got those people together, collected that $50,000, and started a farm and a grocery store. So that the people in Harlem don't have to be subject to genetic modification and warfare. So all I'm saying is that somewhere black leadership keeps failing. Getting a few $1,000s for a conference, that's all you want? Where you can get millions with good ideas? Think about it now. A few people who put the conference together, they ran out with a couple $1,000s, $5, $10, $15,000, and they good. Everybody else bought something from some vendors, so the vendors made a few $100s. And then you left out. How many times do we have to come together for something and get nothing? That's what we're asking. And then the information is outdated. If it's not about unity, it doesn't mean anything. So this is the mantra. The mantra is unity or death. All right? It all began in black. That's all we know for a fact. Everything else is a thesis or a theory. So if we're going to talk about something and have a paradigm to wrap ourselves around, the education has to be connected to economic development in the current time period. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. All right? So let's go to some of this information. Let's go to some of this information. I'm going to rebut some of this information, and I'm going to show you why. Like, I'll give you an example. I have books up here. Listen. I send these books all over the world. People order these books from Germany, from Africa, I send them all over the world. So that's just one part of economics that I can participate in for my family because people are interested in the new information. They're interested in becoming aware of things that they didn't know. And so now I get an order from Senegal, and then one person reads in Senegal, and now I got 10 orders. Because they're like, whoa, what is this? Education equals new economy. That's just one part, building a library. That's one part. Now the IRS doesn't get any money from these books. The city of Philadelphia doesn't get any money from these books. All of the energy from this goes directly back to my family or whatever I'm investing in, period. So if I make $50,000 off of selling books, all $50,000 goes to my family and whatever I'm investing in buying from you in the community, period. Otherwise, if you're in the other paradigm, $15,000 goes to the IRS, this goes to this, you come home with $23,000, and then you stressed out, so you spend $3,000 on alcohol and beer, and you drink it with Osiris in the pyramids.
Quick question for you.
Yeah.
I fully agree with everything you shared. The one key part that I was thinking about, I was thinking about Dr. Joy Lurie DeGruy, that wrote the book Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And when I think about her, what I think about is the fact of, I think it was Pavlov's experiment, where he would feed the dog, ring the bell, and the dog would then now associate eating with the ring of the bell. So now when it heard the ring of the bell, it was time to eat. So they did the same thing with us during slavery in regards to setting markers within the brain so that when we got to certain levels, all of a sudden we shut down. So one of the things that we have, it seems like we have the hardest time with is coming together and working toward a common goal and getting rid of the encumbrances such as religious beliefs, such as social economics, or such as color line, or things of that nature. So while I believe this is amazing and it's functional, but what do we do about those mental markers that stop us from achieving that next level? Because it seems like every time we do get a movement going, eventually now it folds in on itself because of all that they've done to create those markers to stop us from moving forward. And we're not recognizing that those things exist. So when we get to that marker, all of a sudden it implodes, and we're like, well, what happened? Well, what happened was that we're not paying attention to the mental warfare that went on with us, because physiologically we know what's going on, food.
Right.
But what about the mental warfare that needs to be dealt with so that when we're moving forward, we can move together in one unified.
Right, I got you. Yeah, the mental warfare is directly connected to the economic warfare.
Okay.
And this is why we're presenting something new in economics, which means, I'll give you an example. You've had movements before, like the Nation of Islam. You had a movement that had the equivalent of $1 billion empire.
Right.
All right? And it had a mental educational framework. But it's still in the business schematic had the operation where they went for permission to open things, they went to do things, And so they hadn't developed this type of idea that I'm talking about, where your own institution can become the primary feeder of every mechanism of yourself. So now, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad sets up a mental paradigm where people start recognizing that they're not, Negroes, they're not all these particular things, and then he gets them to work together under a common value system of discipline. But he also stated that the operation of how the mosque operated had to move to a governmental format. This is 1972 interviews. When he was doing, he said we have to move to, and what was supposed to happen was that equivalent of $1 billion empire after he passed was supposed to move to that phase. It never moved to that phase.
What stopped it?
The lack of knowledge. The lack of knowledge of how to. Which means Imam Muhammad Muhammad didn't know how to set up an indigenous plebiscite. Malcolm had just started talking about it, but he didn't know the formality of it. So time had to get us to this moment to where we know how to do it. That's why I'm saying new education equals new economy. So now I'm saying we have that. Other aspects of what were there can be adopted, but now we have a format on how to do the business structure. So a part of why we always fall out in the unity is because when it comes down to planning the business schematic, we always go back to something that is parasitic. And what usually happens is people start arguing over money and finances and other things because now parasitic energy is in the space.
That's right.
So now we got to get out of that. What I'm telling these people is they don't know it. We're trying to deliver it to them. We're trying to prevent the education so now they can start the discussion on it. And if they start the discussion on it, it will not create implosion. Implosion is a scientific model. It's called entropy. Entropy is when you have a physical system that cannot sustain the energy that is inside or operating within the system. All right? So if you think about the collapse of a star or something, it could be a car. Your car runs hot, all right? Because the pipe is expanding and is about to explode. The structure of what you have cannot sustain the energy. So we still have the energy of our ancestors in false structures. So it keeps this cyclical implosion that's going on, which is actually a safeguard. Because if you tried to build something inside of that structure and you kept going and you streamlined it, you would probably end up destroying yourself cyclically in a larger way. You see what I'm saying? So we do get some benefit off our creativity when we start stuff, but the cyclical implosion is because we need the proper structure. And the proper structure is let's just make it simple. How do we make the energy circulate? Make the energy circulate through autonomy.
Right.
So that's why I asked the question in the beginning, how many black leaders can we name 5 that are calling for a body politic? They're not, and the reason why these implosions are happening is because they're not calling for the right structure. So we get together under the guise of whatever I am. But we have to get together under the guise that we're starting a body politic to operate what we're doing. If that is the prerequisite, then everything else will fall under that structure, which has nothing to do with opinions or anything else. It will have to do with the structure itself. The reason why the United States of America is so successful is because they borrow clips and pieces of our structure and they're using it.
Right.
And that's what the efficiency is all about. They borrowed some stuff from Aboriginal America and Moorish heritage, they put it together and made the greatest empire on the planet. Literally. We don't see that. Private equity and private placement of public equity can only happen through a trust. That's the only way it can happen. It cannot happen without a trust. Where did they learn to set up trust from? They learned to set up trust from the Moors when they developed what's called Waqifas. And the Waqifas were ways for communities to reestablish or rebuild themselves after the Roman Empire had destroyed their institutions. All right? So they studied that paradigm after they started setting up their educational institutions, and they're employing it. We're calling it capitalism because we are broke inside of it. Misinformed and broke. And so what does that set up? It's the psychology again. Miseducation makes you respond to something inappropriately because of your perception of it is flawed. You think it's capitalism because it's adverse to you, but you don't know you can go set up the same thing and be functional without the glare of the illusion. Because what you have is a white face and money. Behind that you have a whole bunch of trust and public equity. You follow me? And so now we have to reorientate our whole mind. So the disease of the collapse is because we are not looking at the thing properly. White people are efficient because they're using black systems. That's what I'm trying to say.
Correct.
That's what we don't know. What you're calling white supremacy that looks like a Superman is actually black supremacy with a white face. I have to say it like that with specifics that I can break down. That's why it looks so powerful. And then guess what? They got you to volunteer your energy for it because they need that part. So they set up a black structure on the backdrop and use black energy to operate it, which is the creativity and all the other stuff that we create in all these different science, entertainment, all those areas. So now all we have to do is say, wait a minute, why are we plugged up to this? Let's plug into that. Boom, the explosion. The explosion. There's subconscious things, there's fears, there's all kinds of things that are there. Those are all learned behaviors. If some of us have learned not to be fearful, how can we say the other 60 million can't learn? If some of us have united, how can we say they can't unite? They can. We just got to call for the right thing. That's it. That's how simple it is. And so the cyclical implosion that we're talking about is because we've been calling for the wrong thing. We can't call for these minuscule types of things to exist as economic structure. For instance, entrepreneurialism cannot exist in truth without a body politic. Because at the back end, you're always going back to something that's stronger than you to require you to get permission to operate. It can't operate like that. Entrepreneurialism cannot operate through individuals. You have to operate entrepreneurialism through families so it can become inheritable. But the democratic system got your women saying we're free, the men are faggots and homosexuals and all kind of crazy stuff, and they're not understanding the fundamental unit that is required to operate the system anyway. So now you're recycling another problem. So there has to be an order of discipline. But the conscious community doesn't want discipline. It wants freedom, right? Which is really democracy. Everything in the universe is based on discipline and some restraints and rights. The sun can't just say, well, listen, I don't feel like spending every 27 days, and the earth said, I don't feel like doing that. No, I follow the law every day. And by following the law every day, I have a successful solar system. That's it. But we don't want responsibilities with our rights. We just want rights. Sovereign citizens. I want to drive my vehicle conveyance. I learned about some stuff I read online. Does Ali teach that? No, we don't. There's the door. You follow me? There has to be rights along with responsibilities, and this is the problem. This is a major problem. All right? But going back, if you're misinformed along with the information, then you're spewing that out. You don't have a good perception of how to lay the proper framework or the base. So what we're saying is, if we're going to have a movement, we need a global indigenous movement amongst the people of melanin on this planet with a good business infrastructure and foundation. Period. That's all we're saying. And then we're saying, here it is. It's already here. And then we're saying, listen, not only can we do that, we can show you that you're following the private placement of public equity through education. What do I mean by that? You believe everything European scholars say when indigenous scholars are saying something different. So what's the basis of your confidence? Your basis of the confidence is, oh, they have big institutions, so they must be right. Or if the research came from somebody black or somebody from South America, I'm going to take the Europeans over those particular people. Which is your choice. You have a right to do that. But then your children will inherit that spirit. Not mine. You follow me? And so we have to talk about, listen, let me go just right straight to the core. We have to talk about the creation, the formation, the counterintelligence programming of using Africa, right, out of its context. Which means the current theories on the planet of using education from white males who have studied history and come up with a whole educational paradigm. But look, they tricked you. They centered it around Africa to their own benefit. their economic benefit, their historical benefit, and now the world primarily is in hypnosis to these scholars. And I'm about to break the damn hypnosis right now.
Come on.
I'm about to break it
Come on.
with some simple facts and show you it's all another religion. A religion is a belief system that has no immediate benefit for you. That's what a religion is. It's a belief system that has no immediate benefit for you in real time. The promise is always in some other time period, in the past or in the future. You're going to heaven, or you were great building pyramids yesterday. But we control the pyramids today. We control the museums. If you want to visit, you're going to pay us to do it. And we control the private investment in these things. We control the papyruses. And we don't even look like the people on these things. But it doesn't matter because we can do what we want to do. Because we're white. And you believe in us. So, let's have this discussion. Let's have this discussion. All right, you're going to have to take some pens out on this one because some of y'all are just going to disagree with me outright. But it's all right. I'm going to force you to study. These are my points of rebuttal for the people who showed up. Thousands of people showing up. These are my points of. Can y'all see that? All right, it's only 2 pages, and I'm going to go straight into visualization. Point number 1. Teaching Nile Valley heritage should take what I call an indigenous turn. What is the indigenous turn? The indigenous turn is if I can show documents of people in the Nile Valley in Iowa thousands of years ago, your concern with Nile Valley civilization should be an indigenous concern in America. As a people who are the offspring of those people, to move into a socio-political discussion about what are your indigenous rights based on that. Otherwise, it's a bunch of foolish history that you're studying that is controlled by Europeans. Now, the Egyptologists will tell you about what's there, but they won't tell you about what I'm showing you. Because history is for political objectives. It's reconstructions for political objectives. If you lose the history from oral tradition, from father to son and mother to daughter, then you lost it. It's broken. So now you have to reconstruct it. But when you build it back, what are you building it for? You can't possibly tell me white people are reconstructing your history to tell you the truth. You can't possibly tell me that. It's impossible for you to make that statement. So what are their reconstructions for? Their reconstructions are for their pockets, their money, and to control you. They already know who you are. But if we can make you like what we presented, even though it's warped, then we can still get you to go in a certain direction. So follow me on this. If it doesn't take an indigenous turn, in order to make it mean anything in the said 21st century, we have the records of the people of Timeri coming to America. Timeri is the indigenous name for what you're calling Egypt. All right. We have the records of them coming to America and intermixing with the black indigenous civilizations already here. All right? If this approach is not taken, teaching useless heritage that cannot change the socio-political and economic basis of the lives of people is not practical and is a waste of time. That's why your children don't want to hear it. That's why niggas in the street don't want to hear it. Like, what is this? You think it's wrong for people to ask the question, how is this going to help me now? It's actually the best question to ask.
Exactly.
That's the spooky religious thing in you. Oh, it's teaching you your culture. No. How is my culture going to help me now? That's the most intelligent question you can ask. If you're not asking that question, you're not being practical. So don't accuse the people of being greedy. No, they're concerned about them going home to Richard Allen projects, and they're in the same situation. How is this going to move me out of that situation? Mm-hmm. How is it going to fuse me with the right cultural knowledge, the right movement to get me out of this situation? So it's a waste of time if we're going to do that. Key point, I'm going to prove this. Using the term African is a term of denationalization, as the first Africans were white Romans. Voila, history unveiled right before your eyes. I'm about to show you. I'm going to show you the coins. The first Africans were white Romans. So how did white Romans and their descendants end up calling us after a name they made for themselves when we never called ourselves that? That's identity theft. How do you have 55 nations on the continent who are supposed to be intelligent, right? Who have books, who have access to records, calling themselves after what white people named them? And they run their own governments. That means they don't run their own minds.
That's right.
Maybe that's why Africa is having such a problem with Europe, because they don't even know themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Show me one African president that is rebutting the fact that we should not call ourselves African because it came from white people. Maybe many of them were educated in European institutions, right? And some or most of them have secret deals with Europeans to get them some money, right? To the injury of their own people. That's happening. We know that's happening. So it's cool. So now we have to re-educate world leaders on international law. Do not call yourself by the names of terms that create denationalization. It is culturally injurious and is politically injurious. Second, black people and civilization in America are older than and the origins of people and civilizations in Africa. Give me a minute. I'm going to show you. So the out of Africa theory is bullshit. It doesn't mean life didn't come from black people. It just means that how it's presented in Darwinian evolutionary thought, Charles Darwin, and how it migrated into the current history and anthropology as controlled by white people is false. I'm going to prove that. All right? Without a new chronology, black scholars will continue to follow evolution and the out of Africa monogenetic theory. Now, where does the monogenetic theory actually come from? Cheikh Anta Diop proposed the monogenetic theory. You know what monogenetic theory is? That human beings on this planet are the result of two people that come from somewhere. So how can now the conscious community say they're not religious, but adopt evolutionary thought or a mitochondrial Adam and Eve, which actually comes from religion? You say you're anti-religious. Okay, let me slow that down and say it again. You say you are anti-religious, but you are taking a theme that comes from religious books that actually doesn't come from the religious books. It comes from the people who teach it, who are teaching it wrong. The Quran or the Bible does not teach that Adam and Eve were the first people on the planet.
Right.
So how can you now, as an atheist or evolutionist, take a religious principle and apply it to science indirectly? My point is, the monogenetic origin of human beings is false. And we can prove it. White men do not come from black men.
Nope.
Period. There's no evidence that supports that fact. So if white men are born, how did they get here? We can trace the Y chromosomes and we can see the Y allopolymorphism of black men does not match Europeans, which means I'm not your daddy, nigga.
Exactly.
I'm not your daddy. So if you're here and I'm not your daddy, how did you get here? We can try to answer that question, but before we even go into any theories on answering the question, we have a fact that I'm not your daddy. The next thing we have to do is monogenetic theory gets flushed down the toilet until we come to some other conclusions, scientifically with facts, proofs, evidences. It's there. That might go against your religion, that might go against your belief, but it's standing science. All right, let's keep going. The oldest pyramid building, maps, and glyph writing, earth sciences, Homo sapien bones with proofs, calendars, astronomical education existed in ancient black America according to present evidence and proof before it was anywhere. All of that, what I just said. I'm about to show you. The problems are these proofs are not backed by Europe and its scientists and the USA. Europeans don't back this. When the Smithsonian was being formed, Hardlicka and his scientists tried to shoot down anybody who was teaching anything other than the Darwinian evolutionary thought. And so if they brought evidence, they were saying, we don't care who certifies it, it doesn't exist. Because if you're going to make human beings older than 100,000 years ago, you're going to destroy our whole educational system. And we can't have that. Because there's a lot of books that's involved in this. There's a lot of museums, there's a lot of money, there's a lot of investment. We can't have that. We have to keep it the same. And the people at this conference are following those folk. I'm going to show you. I'm going to prove it. Don't say they're not. So these people make billions of dollars off of this theory and can by default negate indigenous thesis on the origin of life in humans just by doing it. Third, we talked about it, the monogenetic and evolutionary concepts now existing in some black said scholastic circles are actually a concept that sprouts from religion, the very religions they critique. Belief that all humans come from one mitochondrial Eve and a Y chromosome Adam is purely a concept and theory that exists because of misconstrued religious thought and not because of actual proofs. The funny thing is, neither of the religions teach that Adam and Eve were the first people. And thus religion does not actually have a monogenetic thesis. You go into the Bible, Adam and Eve, they have 2 children. Allegedly, one kills the other, and then the one who killed the other is cast out to a land where people are already there. Where did those people come from?
Right.
The land of Nod. You go into the Quran, Adam is being created, and then you have Allah and the angels, and Surah 6, verse 6 through 9 says angels are men. Where did these other men come from? Just questions. So neither text starts with a monogenetic theory. I'm just trying to highlight that for the sake of proofs. All right. Next. All right. Well, let's finish this point. So neither give a monogenetic. Darwinian evolution, Charles Darwin, we know what that is, right? Origin of species. And other neo-evolutionists are bogus because they revoke the concept that all change and evolution. Now, evolution is natural selection, all right? One organism morphing from one organism to another organism, all right? And then, humans used to be animals that were in the sea, and then they crawled up on the land, and they grew arms and legs, and they started walking after trillions of years. That's what you call a theory. There are no proofs in the fossil record for it. Nothing is there for it. There are no proofs for it.
That's right.
Evolution is a theory. That's it. It's cool. You can talk about it, have a conversation. Don't talk about it like it's fact. Listen, just be like a child. You know the best thing a child says? Or can make you say? I don't know. We don't know. We have an idea where humans come from, but we don't have proof because we weren't there. So we're going to take the best proofs, and then we'll settle on some facts, and then whatever we don't know is always called a theory. And then we rest at that. What we do know is black people were first everywhere. On every continent.
Exactly.
We know that. Okay. Which takes us back to the indigenous concept and not wasting a lot of time. Once we prove that we are the autochtons or the people of the land, let's keep moving. We can have conversations in our scholastic department about evolution that we fund, that we paid for. You follow me? All right. Let's keep going. So let me get through some of this so we can get other points of rebuttal. When you come to Kemet, or studying Kemet or Nile Valley Dynasty, these are some things that you need to know so that you don't get confused. Nile Valley dynasties of so-called Egypt were not monolineal, meaning they didn't come from one people. We had over 30 plus dynasties that different people ruled in. Check this out though. And they were not monolineal in their dynastic existence. Check this out. At least 4 different black lineages ruled Egypt at different times, or sometimes synonymous, and they fought against each other at various points. The Thebans were black Egyptians. The Cushites were black people of Egypt. The Afro-Canaanites who came in the 14th dynasty were black people from Canaan. The Hyksos, who we think were white, were black, predominantly black people. With incursions coming later from Hittite invasion and other things. So you had all these people. The Cushites didn't like the Thebans. They fought each other. So you studying ancient Egypt like it's one group of people that was having this kumbaya song, and it was chopping off each other's heads. Which is cool. But introduce that into the study. So what kind of Egyptian are you today? Are you a Theban? Are you a Cushite? Are you an Afro-Canaanite? What are you? Are you Afro-Asian? Are you, what are you? A Hyksos? Like, what are you? What are you creating as a community today? You're creating another religion. Because now you're saying, okay, let's come together under this one paradigm, Nile Valley, and not explaining to the people what this particular thing is. Check this out. This is important. This is important because look, Because of the false concept that Kemetic dynasties have their origins in Kush. You ever heard that? Some people, Dr. Ben said that. Dr. Ben is one of the greatest scholars that we have. He was wrong on that point. There's no papyrus that says that the Kemetic dynasties originated in Kush. Which one? Narmer? Menes? Go find Narmer, and Narmer saying he was coming from Kush. Later dynasties, the 25th dynasty was a Kushite dynasty, so they proclamated, their turf. Like, yo, this is ours. This is the origin of Osiris. Other things said different things about Osiris. First of all, at the conference, there was a person trying to prove that Osiris was from Kush. And then there were other people who proved, had different theses. This is crazy. You know why? I'm gonna give you an example of what it's like. That's like saying Jesus fighting over whether he was a Jew or whether he was a Philistine. First of all, you can't prove Jesus existed. He's a mythical person. So why would you argue about the origins of a mythical person? Osiris, who is Osiris? There's no Osiris body. There were real pharaohs, Pharaoh Akhenaten, Pharaoh Tutankhamun. Osiris is a mythical African king. Why would you argue about his origins when he didn't exist? Okay, y'all didn't get it. All right. Don't turn Osiris into Jesus. That's what I'm trying to say to you. You follow me? Don't turn him into Jesus. You start arguing about his origins. We know he was a black man. Period. He's indigenous. Great. Let's keep moving. Because if white scholars get up and say the Thebans fought against the Kushites, and you thought the Thebans originated in Kush, you're going to be disappointed. Just as disappointed as the person who finds out that Jesus might not be real. What I'm saying is, don't create another religion in your head. There's no need to. Study black history. It has its great high points and it has some low points. Do not romanticize your history to the detriment of yourself. Because as soon as somebody comes with a hammer, you're going to be like, oh, I believe in Kemetic thought. I can't believe Set and Heru was fighting. Or whatever. It makes no sense. All right. Let's keep going. And I'm saying that because the Thebans taught something different than the Kushites. In cosmology, it was differences. And so you don't want to get fooled. If you're going to study black history, study it. All right? Maybe if you're studying West African tradition, the Akan teaches a little bit different than the people at the Yoruba. Maybe some different. It's all indigenous. Grab one, hold on to it, great. Use it, and then keep it moving. Don't romanticize it, though. If you romanticize it, if Ali Muhammad brings out a book and says, yeah, studying Ifa is great because you're gonna, but then the Oyo kings enslaved over. Right? The Oyo kings partnered with the Portuguese to enslave their own people. All right, I practice voodoo. Right? Okay. We know that the area that's known as the Home and Kingdoms of Ouida, that was their primary practice. There was one, according to records, there was one Ouida king, who sold 400 of his wives into slavery to make money, to go visit Europe. Don't romanticize your history. We got black sellouts now, we had them then. Stop doing this to yourself. We do that to ourselves because we want to learn our history and we want something better than what we learned with white people. But problems did not start with white people.
No.
Okay? You need to get that out of your head. Problems did not start with white people. They just exacerbated it planetarily. But it did not start with white people. Black people was fighting black people before white people existed. We need to understand that. There were no white people around when the Thebans were fighting the Kushites. Matter of fact, all the armies were black. They were fighting over what? Economy, resources, gold. Who wanted the bling? The pharaoh said, listen, I'm up here drinking my beer. I need some more bling. Some pharaohs were corrupt. Some of them were myotic. It's life. Stop romanticizing your history. Let's keep going. The Brother Sanjeti brought up this point. The linguistic use of the English term more, he was saying, had nothing to do with African languages. Then I had a scratch in my head, like, wait a minute. Show me where the European ever developed a language. Okay, let me qualify my point. A language is an alphabet or a set of glyph writing, and the corresponding sounds and meanings of words used in real time phonetically to have meaning. White people never developed the alphabet. The alphabet that we're using for all these countries that call themselves Europeans goes back to Phoenicia. This is a Phoenician alphabet. My point is, if the Greeks are using words, they had to get it from people who spoke the language. So we can find the etymology for words that all etymology goes back to black languages. That's what I'm trying to say. So as a philologist or a linguist, why would you be biased or discriminatory about one word? It's because you don't like that group of people. So now that Nile Valley has a beef with Moors, your word doesn't come from us. This is childish. It's childish. So we're going to give some etymology to negate that. All right. Then when it comes, my point at the lecture, one of my points is that studying Moorish history and Nile Valley history and the connection between the two is important to stop the set tripping. And so the approach that many of these scholars, I'll name them, Dr. Reggie, Seti, Ankh, Sa-Neter, and many other Pan-Africanists take towards Islam, and conversely, the position that some Moors or Muslims take towards African history, create large levels of division. And both sides are ignorant. I'm going to help with some of that today. All right? So let's keep going. Let's keep going. Because I want to get to the evidence. All right? So, point always make, identity theft is a crime. Literally. It is a crime if it's based on nationality, ethnicity, it's a crime. If you somebody steal your wallet, it's a crime. All types of identity theft are crimes. This is a depiction of identity theft. You have the black natives in Mexico arresting foreigners coming into these lands. Today we call these people the indigenous people and these people the foreigners.
Right.
These people have to be Afro something. Afro-Cuban, Afro-Colombian, Afro-Mexican, Afro-American. The reason why they have to be that is because of our misconstrual of the transatlantic slave trade. So we're going to show that the transatlantic slave trade started in America, taking black people back to Europe. It did not start in West Africa. It later migrated to West Africa, where you got this triangulation. But these are the people who we call She, misnamed Olmec Mayan, and they are the ones who are wearing the feathers and have all of the indigenous gear, and these people are being arrested because they are foreigners. This is from Chichen Itza, the murals of Chichen Itza, all right? To depict the autochthonous or indigenous populations. All right? We know about these heads from Levanta. All right? We call these Olmec. Their indigenous name was She. They did not say they were from Africa in their text. We do that. Oh, the Africans came to America. Why are you thinking that? Oh, because you believe in Charles Darwinism, you believe in monogenetic, you believe in out of Africa. You got all these things inside of your head. And you think through that way of thinking because something else is not being introduced to you. All right? The symbolism, the language, the glyph writing, you can't go and take the Epi Olmec script and find it anywhere else in the world. If it was from Africa, you'll find the script in Africa. You don't jump across the ocean and automatically start writing in a different language. My point is, it's all black, globally. They had different animals that they used in their symbolism, the turtle, all right? And it had different meaning. But it's still black people globally, all right? So this is Mexico. That's the book that we have here. I have it somewhere in here. If you want to read up and study on those things and get proficiency with them. All right, so let's go to some of this. Now this is a redrawing of, this is the pyramids at Giza, and this is the pyramids at Teotihuacan. They are both built on the alignment of the stars in the belt of Orion. Does anybody know why? Anybody know why?
I believe it was to keep certain energetic alignment within the earth, so
Okay.
it's on different continents. From what my understanding is that the pyramids are not just here; they're on various continents to
Yeah,
keep
all over the
that
world.
alignment around the globe.
Right, okay. Not only that, the belt of Orion in astronomy is the baseline of the celestial equator. So they built structures as clocks. Like, okay, I'll give you an example. We use longitude and latitude right now, right? Why do we use longitude and latitude? To tell where we at in place and location on the planet. And then we do what? We set a prime meridian. The prime meridian sets a time so that when we have global civilizations communicating with each other, mainly in commerce and travel, right, we can all communicate. So now if you get on a plane at 3 o'clock in Philadelphia and you get on a 3-hour flight to go to Los Angeles, which usually takes longer, but I'm just using 3 hours, all right, when you get to Los Angeles, what time will it be? If it's 3 p.m., you leave Philadelphia, and you go on a 3-hour jet plane to Los Angeles. When you arrive in Los Angeles, what time will it be?
6 o'clock. 6 p.m.
What time?
6 p.m.
Say it again?
3 o'clock.
Thank you.
3 o'clock.
It'll be
Oh,
3
wait,
o'clock.
I'm sorry. I'm dealing with the
6
actual
and
time.
3.
It's a 6-hour flight because I just took it.
I know.
Because
I'm just
sorry.
using this
All right,
example
right,
for the 3
You're
because
right.
I know
Yeah, yeah.
California and the West Coast are 3 hours apart.
Right, 3
But
hours.
because you're flying against the grain of the motion of the Earth, right? The Earth is spinning a certain way.
Right, I'm sorry.
Even though the trip was 3 hours, the time and location when you get to Los
Would be
Angeles will
3
still be
hours.
3 p.m. What time will it be in Philadelphia? When you get to 3 p.m. and it'll be 6 p.m.
6 p.m. Right.
Right. You follow?
Mhm.
So now you need just a little bit of science to understand the ability and the need to make those communications. Because somebody has to set the flight plans for you to leave at a certain time, all right? And everybody needs to know where they are. This is not the first time that we had global travel and global time concepts.
Mm.
So if somebody left Africa in a boat, they knew how long it was going to take for them to get to America, and they used the stars as the means for keeping time. We do that same thing today, except we get satellites to do it for us. So a satellite can keep time on Earth based on this understanding and downloaded information inside of it about celestial points, stars, and universal time. Got it? So this is, it's not something new. Having a prime meridian, doing something based on astronomy is not new. Without astronomy and satellites, nothing in our society would work technologically. This MacBook Pro couldn't tell me that it's 239. There has to be information downloaded into it so it can, keep a calculation of those particular things. Right? And we know in indigenous history, they keep telling you that black people invented all these clocks. Benjamin Banneker, and you go back to the clocks in the Moorish civilizations, then you keep going back. These are clocks. So it goes to show that this was a globally known knowledge. This is the celestial equator, literally. You need to go so you can see the 0 degrees going through the belt of Orion. All right? This is how we know, besides looking at the seasons, this is how we know the seasons. All right? It's based on astronomy. And based on nature telling us, the leaves start falling in certain parts of the planet, we know that it's fall. But if you're at the equator, you can't know that the North America is going through fall because your seasons don't change.
Right.
So now you need astronomy to tell me, oh yeah, it's cold up there now. Or it's warm down here now. So now our people weren't stupid. We were really intelligent back then. Globally. So what was on one side of the Atlantic was on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
That's important to know. And it all came from the same black people.
Mm-hmm.
Sharing the knowledge. Because there was no white people building these things. Matter of fact, when I tell you how old they really are, you're going to know there's no white people on the planet.
Right.
Okay. Wonder.
All right? So we're pretty smart. All right, great. This is the second largest pyramid in the world. This is just the frontal view. This is called the Pyramid of Cholula. All right? The largest pyramid is called the Pyramid of El Mirador. Both of these pyramids are larger than the pyramid that we know of as the Pyramid of Giza. The Pyramid of Giza on its baseline, the area is 13 acres. This one is 40. All right? And through it's important for us to, I'm going to show this, that they understood longitude and latitude. And they used the longitude and latitude to align pyramids on the planet. I'll start by saying that, just to align them before I get into any higher things that you might consider even spooky. All right. They use pyramid alignment. So look this pyramid up. There's a church on top of this pyramid still today, with grass and everything growing on it. All right, further things that we shown. Now, the Atlantic slave trade. This is just fact session. All right. This is sourced from the book by Jack Forbes, African and Native Americans. The primary source for this information is the Jesuit letters. The Jesuit letters were letters by Spanish missionaries recording what they saw when they came to the Americas. All right? So this is a quote. Slaves from Terra Nova. Terra means land, Nova means new. Terra Nova was North America. And the islands. Show up in the slave markets of Seville, Spain. So you had slaves from America showing up in Spain. Look who it was, though. And Valencia, very soon after 1500. All right? So in 1500, by that time, there were no Africans in West Africa, in the Gold Coast, or whatever being taken to the Americas. Not yet. For example, in Valencia, during the period to 1516, we find in 1503, Miguel, Man, and in 1505, Juan, and Pedro. So it's obvious that these people had been renamed Spanish names as property. And in 1507, Antonio and Juan Amarco. All right? And in 1515, Ali, now Melchor. So they changed this slave's name from America, who had the name Ali, to Melchor. All right? In 1516, Catalina. They were all classified as Negroes. So they were coming to the America, taking Indios or Indians and classifying them when they got to Spain as Negroes because of how they look. So we need to get the Jesuit letters to understand that the transatlantic slave trade started by Europeans taking black people from the Americas back to Spain and Europe. And there's a whole, this book is about that, Africans and Native Americans, and the Jesuit letters are primary source documents for you to look that up. All right, keep going. This artist, Jan Bareilles, painted Mohawk chiefs in New York in 1710 who went to Europe. This is what they look like. This is what they look like. Now, when they show you Native Americans, they're not going to show you that they look like this. What? Identity theft. Identity theft. Didn't they tell you that they sold Manhattan for $25? They didn't even use dollars. What made you think that they were going to accept your We need to look at the original stories of these things so we can go. Take the artist's name down and see if this is their original portraits. Jan Bareilles. All right? Common sense. I wrote a paper in 2004. And this is the first time that the Ankh, we told what the Ankh was. The Ankh is actually an organ in the brain. It's called the Circle of Willis. This is called practical knowledge, not wearing big Ankhs and with coils talking about you about to zap somebody. I'm about to put my Heru zap on you. Meanwhile, you go eat a chicken cheesesteak and you clog your real Ankh. Which is the circulation of the blood in your brain to regenerate tissues and bring oxygen to your brain. To give you clarity of thought and a clear mind. Which is why, when you look at the history, they put the Ankh where? To the nose. It represents the level of oxygen in the brain and the proficiency of intelligence in the person. Which means you have to be on the right diet. And you see the arms coming from the I-10 disc, right? Which is energy from the sun. With your children wearing sunscreen.
Yeah, I got that.
Or you going to Africa and you don't know the exemption for the vaccination, so you're taking the vaccinations. Follow me? Make this practical. Now you got, what's the company name? GlaxoSmithKline Beecham viral strands in your Ankh. That's how impractical we can get. All right. So we have to be practical. All right. So check this out. I'm going to read some stuff from the pyramid text. And the pyramid text is showing you a fascination. This is just a serious point I want to make. A fascination of certain early pharaohs with the West. Now, Africa is east. What's west of Africa? I'm just saying. I didn't write this. The word is Kinti Amintu. So you can get people to check the word to see if it actually means west. So they had this fascination with the West. What was it about? Now, isn't it interesting? Check this out. Isn't it interesting that it's black Americans who are doing more talk about ancient African civilizations, especially Nile Valley, than any black people on the planet, including the ones who right there on the Nile? Isn't that interesting? Wouldn't it make sense for the people who are closest to the place to be talking about it more? Well, how come they're not doing YouTubes and having international lectures on it? They got access to internet. They try to tell us that Africa is they try to dumb us down like Africa don't have cities.
Right.
And technology.
Right.
Hell, some of the cities look better than these.
Yeah, true.
Way better. So why aren't they having the conversation? Is it possible? Is it possible that the information is springboarding from here for even some spiritual purpose? Is it possible? Now I'm going to read this. This is pyramid text. You can check these out. Utterance 304. Hail to you, bull of Re. This is talking to the Neb, the Pharaoh, who has 4 horns. Bend down this western horn of yours for me, that I, referring to the king, may pass. Then the bull, who is the creature speaking to the Pharaoh, says, are you a pure westerner? That's the bull asked. The king says, I have come forth from the falcon city. Now, let's do science and not do religion. He's talking about the West and he's talking about falcons. Now, how many people know that the oldest falcons in the world come from the Americas? When you do anthropology, let's look at it. So, wherever the falcon city is, it has to be dealing with the origin of the falcon. Because the falcon is shown as the symbol for Heru. So let's read it. Some scholars say the origins of Egyptian kings and civilizations comes from Cush. I question that. The Egyptians, specifically one group, Thebans, venerated the West and despised Cush. They fought against him. I'm going to show you. Don't mean that we got to take the concept that, we should not embrace Africa, but I'm saying we got to get out of this spooky belief system that black people didn't have problems before us. We got to get out of it. So some of them despise Cush, according to the record. The origins of the falcon, jackal. The jackal represents who? Anubis or Anpu. Wasn't Anpu the one who wrapped the mummies and prepared them for their resurrection in Amenta?
Yes, sir.
Amenta meant the West.
Yes, sir.
I'm just saying. So the falcon, the jackal, and more all originated in the Americas based on geological record. So now you're going to have to read this and see whether I'm telling the truth. So I just read the one about pure Westerner. Look, utterance 81. Aset, or Isis, has reassembled you. The heart of Horus is glad about you in this your name, foremost of the Westerners. And it is Horus who will make good that Seth has done to you. So it's talking about Horus fixing the situation that happened with Seth taking his father away, but he's saying he's foremost of the Westerners. Now the word can be translated by many different ways. The word is Kinti Amintu. Kinti Amintu. Amintu was the land of the West, the land of the dead who are resurrected. Ouch. Exactly. The dead who are resurrected. You are resurrecting this science faster than anybody on the planet. And you're in the West. And this was written 5,000 years ago.
Wow.
All right. I didn't make this up. I can research this. Utterance 81. All right. So, the origins of the falcon. The oldest fossil records are in Idaho. Of the falcon. Time period, late Miocene, which is 10 million years ago in Idaho. Source, a coracoid of a Merlin-sized species, Becker, 1987, and it's at the Idaho Museum of Natural History. The next oldest falcon fossil was in Kansas, 4.8 million years ago. All right. The source is Fox Canyon Local Fauna, 4.3 to 4.8 million years ago, and that's the anthropologist. And then it gives the project where they were doing the geological survey. I didn't make this up. The falcons originated in the West. They're venerating the West. The South Falcon was a symbol of their kingship. So everybody didn't agree on the origins. That's all I'm saying. Everybody didn't agree on the origins. Let's hurry up because I know we got another class coming. Look, this is in America. Comparison of language scripts from ancient Egypt and Iowa, which prove without a doubt who was in ancient America. This source was the Museum of the American Indian in Orient, New York. This is the actual tablet, and this is what the tablet says. Tablet from Orient or Long Island, New York, dated 1000 BC. Tablet is in what's called an Abenaki Micmac script. So this is an indigenous script. It's not an African script, but it's speaking about Africans coming here. The tablet reads Ta Gabet Tamir Was, which translates as national ship of the Egyptian, which is the word that he used, Tamir, of the Egyptian nation. All right? So the question is that what was the extent of the travel of the Egyptians? What are they doing in Long Island, New York, 3,000 years ago? I'm just saying, they were there. And the indigenous people documented their interaction. So my point is, if you're going to study Nile Valley history, study this. This proves that the Egyptians were in America. That's indigenous history. All right? Let's keep it moving.
Excuse me, Chief.
Yes.
Mr. Horace Butler released a book in 1998. It was already done.
Horace Butler's research is about proving that the Bible and the biblical cities existed in America. That's bogus. He had his other research that's very good. And the book was not released in 1998.
12, 13, before you even started this research, Horace Butler has already told us that ancient Egypt's capital was in Mexico City.
That's not what I'm saying.
No, hold on. Let me finish. He's already got this history out there already. So this
He doesn't have this history out there. I have the book.
Trust me, he has it.
I have the book. I've read it.
I talked to him. He has a lot of research, and he's coming out with a movie next year.
I'm not negating what you're saying. What I'm saying is Horace Butler is a great researcher, and he's proposed things, but a part of them is erroneous. The Egyptian cities or capitals were not in the Americas. What I'm saying is they venerated the West. They lived in Africa. He's proposing that they were actually here, that places like Jerusalem were not in the East, they were actually in South America. That's bogus, man. I don't have time for that. We're talking about real history. We're not talking about taking the Bible and trying to make it ancient America.
But that's not what he did.
Brother, okay, we're all on the record. I have the books When Rocks Cry Out.
Yes.
All right?
And he never said that Egypt was only in the Americas. He said Egypt is an empire.
I didn't say that. You said that their capital city was in Mexico.
Yeah,
I'm saying that that's erroneous.
Memphis was a Mexico City. Yeah.
Memphis was in Africa, brother, along with all the other African cities. There's no ancient city in ancient Mexico called Memphis, because Memphis is a Greek word.
Okay, you can call it whatever you want, the city of the sun, or whatever you want to call it. In Medu Neter, I don't speak it.
There are no Medu Neter cities in Mexico. There's no Medu Neter in Mexico.
They found sites, they dug up tombs, and all that stuff.
Okay, let me saying that these people visited the Americas where civilizations already were. It's just like if you leave Philadelphia and you go to Africa, and if I take my books into Africa, it don't mean Ali was born in Africa. It means Ali was born in America, and he took some of his stones and his other things into Africa, and he left them there. So we're talking real history. We're not talking making up stuff. The African cities were in America. No, the African cities were in Africa. Abydos is in Abydos. It's Africa. All right? The Nilotic cities were actually in those places. So what I'm saying is Horace Butler made good efforts to try to prove the connection, but then he started spewing some erroneous stuff, saying that the biblical and African cities were actually in the Americas. It's erroneous.
You've talked to him before personally?
I'm not going to talk about the private conversation that I have had with him, but I know Horace Butler, and all I'm saying is I have his book. I've read it several times, and we're not here to talk about that. Nor are we here to diverge the conversation. That's a great conversation we can have afterwards.
You were talking about ancient Egypt artifacts in America, and I'm just saying there's a man out there that has already done a lot of work talking about the same thing you're talking about.
Let me help you out, though. There were people before him that did it 100 years prior to him.
And he acknowledged them.
Are you asking me to acknowledge
No,
Horace Butler?
no, I'm just saying that what you're saying corresponds to what he's saying.
It's not. It does not correspond to what he's saying.
A lot of what you've been saying here about ancient Egypt in America and the evidence.
Brother, we are going to continue this conversation. We can have this conversation privately afterwards. I will stand on the point that if you compare my literature to When Rocks Cry Out, they are conversely opposite to each other. The only thing that is synonymous is that we are saying that there was some type of interaction between ancient American civilizations and Egyptian, and we're not the first to have that conversation. Literally, hundreds of scholars have had this conversation, but nobody is talking about a body politic and making the information useful like I'm talking about. So I would like to continue and not continue to, have these things. Right. So look, other Egyptian documentation. Davenport stele, Pontotoc stele. This is a stele that has the Egyptian writing, that has the Moroccan Berber writing, and has a late, I think, form of Latin that's also on here. That's, Punic writing, not Latin, Punic. All right, that's Old Latin, and it is celebrating the winter solstice. The vernal equinox, which is the new year, which is in March. This is found in I believe this one, Davenport stele in Iowa. This one is found in Oklahoma. So the purpose of me showing these particular documents is to show that there was the interaction, not to make the Egyptians Americans. I'm showing that they have been here and that they settled with populations that were already here. And so in our conversation about Nilotic civilizations, we should not be having feel-good history. We should acknowledge that these things exist for a socio-political purpose. Not for Ali to write books. Not for you to come to my lectures and show you how smart I am because I'm repeating histories of other people who have already repeated that. I'm not interested in that. What we're interested in is proving indigenous autonomy to move forward in conversation. That's the purpose of showing all this. Otherwise, it has no other purpose to show it. But some people who study African civilization don't know that this exists. So we have to show them that it exists. All right? This is cross comparison between the writings in Iowa, the Egyptian heretic script. These are off of the Davenport stele and the Pontotoc stele, to show that they're the same type of writings that were corresponded, that existed in America when people from the Nilotic civilizations came here. All right. It's important to highlight this. Some people might not like me highlighting this, but the people in the Theban times were not pro-Nubia and pro-Kush. I have to highlight it, all right? This is Utterance 242, and it says, the flame is extinguished. No light is found in the house of him who possesses Nebet, which is Nubia. This is their converse attitude towards them. And I'm doing this to break up the religious mindset about the monolineal existence of Egypt. Because there were differences, and they didn't all see things the same way. This is Amenhotep III, all right? From Carl Seth's records, who was one of the most prolific linguists, according to them, in Egyptology. This quote comes from Amenhotep III. Look at what he said. All right? Ringo year 5, third month of inundation. Day 2, appearance under the majesty of Horus. Strong bull appearing in truth. 2 ladies who established laws and pacifies the 2 lands. King of Upper and Lower Egypt. Neb-Mayat Ra, heir of Ra, son of Ra. Amenhotep, ruler of Thebes. Beloved of Amun-Ra. King from the gods and Nun. Lord of the cataract, given life. One came to tell his majesty, quote, the fallen one of vile Cush has plotted rebellion in his heart. So these are the Cushites planning a rebellion against the Thebans, both of whom are in Egypt, or Kemet.
His Majesty led on to victory. He completed it in his first campaign of victory. His Majesty reached them like the wing stroke of a falcon, like Mentu, war god of thieves. In his transformation, Aikini, the bolster in the midst of the army, did not know the lion that was before him. Neb Mayat Ra was the fierce-eyed lion whose claws seized vile Cush, who trampled down all his chiefs in their valleys, they being cast down in their blood, one on top of the other. I'm just saying. They didn't all agree. So to pronounce that they all agree and that one came from the other is to go against them. Stop romanticizing your history. They were stacking bodies and blood on top of each other. The thing that we need to learn from it is that we need unity and we have to learn the mistakes of history. Why were these people fighting each other? Since they were all black.
Because they have
For the same?
different spiritual systems.
No,
Yes.
it's because of resources.
No, it's not.
Primarily because of resources. People fight each other because of resources, generally speaking.
Spiritual
Especially when you have rulers who are invading another country. All right? So what was in Nubia that the Thebans wanted? Gold. When you look at the tributary payments that they required from their Cushite vassals, they required the gold. And they used it all over Kemet. Well, my point is, if you romanticize history, you will romanticize reality. If you romanticize reality, you will believe that you will not have problems in the black community with trying to establish something. And so when you're trying to establish something, focus on the objectives and implementing them and not on the fact that you're going to have opposition. Because the opposition existed 3,000 years ago and it will exist today. That's the principle that we're laying down. Check it out. I didn't make this up. This is a dissertation for a college PhD, and they have the information there. This is the Hyksos allying with Cush against Thebes. All right? Al-Wasa Re, son of Re, Apopsis, who is a Hyksos, greets my son, the ruler of Cush. So they have a conversation between the Hyksos and the Cushites. Why did you accede as ruler without informing me? So now the Hyksos is asking the Cushite, why did you come to power in the seat without telling me? I run things. See how niggas argue over rulership? They was doing it then. Do you see what Egypt has done against me? The ruler is in it, Kamos, the mighty, given life, is assailing upon my soil. Although I did not attack him, the very same way he did against you. It is in order to torment these two lands that he fixed them out. Both my land and yours he has ravaged. Come north, don't blanch. Since he is occupied with me here, there is no one who can oppose to you in this Egypt. All right? So he's telling the Cushites to come attack the Thebans. But some people are trying to say the Thebans said they come from Cushites. You got to read the records. Do not believe anybody. Do not believe me. Research. Belief is destroying you. Belief is for children. Belief is for children to have confidence in their parents. But once you become an adult, you have the mental integrity to overlook things and review things. And we should acquire ourselves the ability to access information since it's available. Apophis goes on to say, since I won't let him go until you arrive, we can then divide up the towns of this Egypt and our lands and we'll be happy again. They're part of the Lord. These are all Egyptians, black people. Look at it. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, this is from the tomb of Horemheb of the 18th dynasty in Memphis, and you have Kemetic officials are here taking a head count of Nubian slaves. That looked like a transatlantic slave ship. Egyptians, Nubians, or Cushites. Then for those who doubt, let the Madun Neter speak. What does this say? Cush Kushet, wretched Cush, vile Cush. This is what they put in stone. So they didn't agree. You can't say the Egyptians have their origins in Cush when they're putting this on their walls. What's the importance? The importance is if your education is misconstrued, then your behavior will also be misconstrued. So when we have an education, we need a thorough education. What type of thorough education am I talking about? Look. Moors argue with Pan-Africans all the time. And what they don't know, they're actually both the same people, historically. The Nile Valley people use this symbol for their ancestors. This plow right here is the etymology of where you get the English word Moor from. I'm going to show it to you all over Egypt. This is from the papyrus of Kinsi Mos. Let's show it to you in script. All right? This is the same symbol. Now, the word had a different meaning at this time. It meant the heir to the throne. Then it was passed into the Canaanite or Phoenician, where it meant the lord or the ruler. Then by the time it got to Greek, it was moros, or they were using it as mor ops to describe the Ethiopian ruler, and then it became black, moros. And then, of course, it spread to Latin and then other languages. All right? So it took on, but the point is the etymology goes back to African language. All right? Nesut, Sina, Kat, If, Mere, Tut, Ankh, Aten. This was before he became Tutankhamun. He was Tutankhaten. And he was a Sheps, which is the symbol for the ancestors. All right? All right? So this is the king's Sinakat, the king's bodily son. Because in law we teach what? Just soli, which is rights to the soil, the plow. Just sanguinis, which is rights by what? Bloodline. His bodily son. He didn't say sinner. Sinner is son. But when you add kat, it means his bodily son. So he's dealing with just sanguinis and just soli of rights to the throne. This is the temple of Al-Ashmi. And so now we don't have to argue over the etymology of the word Moor. It goes back to the very same language, and y'all both arguing with each other. Why are Moors and Nile Valley proponents arguing with each other when the words that they use to describe themselves in the languages show that they had a unified concept in the past, at least? All right? And you can find this symbol all over Africa. All right? Here you have it again. All right? And this is Ramesses. All right? Amenhotep, Ramesses. All right? Passing the torch. All right? So you have Merde again. Heir. The word meant heir. You can keep going all over Africa. This is the Scorpion King. This is pre-dynastic. What is he holding? All right? And some of these letters became a part of the Phoenician script, where this became the alpha. You turn it over, and what does it look like? A. It became the Phoenician A. Literally. All right? So this is the pre-dynastic period where you have this cloud where it represents the origin of rights to the soil of the kingship. And the etymology, when you deal with the language of it, it's the letter MR, that symbol. So now, usually when you do etymology, people take it back to Greek and they stop. But the Greeks didn't invent a language. These letters that you have right here are Punic or Phoenician. So moroi, all right, meaning dark in complexion. By the time it got to the Greeks, they used our physical complexion. When it was in the indigenous languages, it meant ruler and heirship. So all I have a problem with is all etymology goes back to black languages. Quit tripping. All right? And they called the Greeks called the kings of Ethiopia Meros. All right? Mer-ops. Ops is face, mer. To them, they changed this to meaning black. All right? Like Ethiops. Burnt faces. All right? So we got to correct the language. Now let's go into some real history. These stones are called the Ica stones. They were found in Peru. They depict animals that are supposed to be extinct. Now some people propose that these are fake, that they were made up. That some people got together and made these things up. The only problem is they didn't do their research. All right? So how could human beings make depictions of dinosaurs that were supposed to die in the early Paleocene era, which is 65 million years ago? If they were humans 65 million years ago, that means that the out of Africa theory and all the theories that white people have proposed on the origins of humanity are incorrect. Not only that, they were found in a desert, which is a dry place that could preserve it, and put on a stone that's called andesite. So are they real? The Amun-Ra squad said they're not real, that they were made up, that nobody was here when these animals that are called dinosaurs were here. All right? Other depictions. These are supposed to be fake, right? I'm gonna show you why they're not fake. First of all, there are over 20,000 of them we found. The book that I have right here, you couldn't even buy this book. Now you can get it in America because people have copied it. I had to get this book from the museum. I paid $500 for this book. This little piece of book. You couldn't even, Amazon, nobody was selling it. If you go in there now, it might be thousands of dollars for it. I got it from the museum for the few $100s because it has this information in it that people didn't even want available here. You can pass it around. All right. So check it out. So the Amun-Ra squad said, "Oh, it's fake. They made all these following these New Ages. They made this stuff up." They forgot to do their research. They couldn't have been made up by somebody in modern times because both the indigenous people in the past, the Inca, and the Spanish conquistadors reported that they had the stones during their time. So that means they had to put somebody in a time travel contraption, send them back in time, forge them, and bring them back. So I'm about to show you the sources and the records on it. And what they depict. Not only do they depict things in that area, they depict things that we can see physically that are only found in America, like the Nazca lines. And the things that are shown there are also on these stones, which are in the same vicinity, which means the same people who built or made those particular things, they made these particular stones. And the people are depicted as black people on the stones. I'm going to show you they left a hue on them.
Could you go back? Could you reconnect that with the dinosaurs? I missed the part. Are you saying
I'm saying that according to history, no human beings were supposed to be alive when the dinosaurs were here, and they were supposed to be wiped out by some catastrophe, possibly a meteorite.
And are you also saying that this is confirming that the dinosaurs actually were here? Because there's a different teaching that's saying that they never existed.
Well, you can say that they never existed, but they like for the Nation of Islam, the messenger said that they didn't exist as they were taught, but there were animals, and he considered them to be animals that were primarily sea animals or animals in water. Mm-hmm. So he corrected or saw that as they weren't land animals. I'm not here to talk about his belief on that. I'm here to deal with the record that we have bones and the animals existed. Whether we saw them as sea creatures or land creatures, they existed.
And to that size.
Yeah, and to that size, yes, okay. Absolutely. And so the animals existed, and something happened to them, and something happened in the area. And these stones tell the whole story of what happened. All right? But the point is, for the people who thought that they were fake, they have to negate these sources I'm about to show you that blow them out of the box. And also blows out of the box that, yes, human beings have been here for millions of years. Mm-hmm. That we didn't originate from primates. We were already here. All right? Let's keep going. So you can see they even left some of the hue. The brown hue is still on them when they extracted these particular things. This is a depiction of them doing surgeries. Some of the surgeries that were done, found on the stones when they were found, had not even been created yet. Mm-hmm. The types of surgeries. Mm-hmm. So we have articles from medical experts that said at the time that these stones were existed, we weren't even doing those types of surgical procedures. Right. I'm just saying. It was there. And how are you going to get some clown who knows nothing about surgery to depict these surgical procedures? All right. We're dealing with anesthesia, certain types of anesthesia, certain tools, the use of telescopes. Now they say, remember, allegedly, and there might be evidence for this in the geological record, that the dinosaurs were destroyed by some comet that smacked into where the Yucatan is right now that created the Gulf of Mexico. That's the geological thesis. These people are depicting the comet actually coming and them seeing it. Mm-hmm. That's important. for why they left the area. These are the same things that are found in the Nazca lines. You see, the Nazca lines are depictions or writings that show animals or certain types of animals that are native to the Americas that can only be shown from some type of flying apparatus. All right, thousands of years ago, somebody left these there. But these same images are found on these stones. All right, let's go to the sources. The thesis of where you get Pangaea from, here's a map right here, right, that's thousands of years old, that depicts North America, South America, the west coast of Africa when it was closer, and a continent that was in the Pacific Ocean. That continent, the evidence of it now exists as the Ring of Fire, which is the most geologically unstable area on the planet, that shows some type of cataclysm happened inside of the Pacific Ocean. And when you go close to Japan, you see the underwater structures and pyramids that have been built there.
Right, yeah.
That are remnants of those civilizations. All right? So here's what the map would look like, a reproduction of it. This is the oldest map in the world. From the same area. All right? That's most of Asia. This is when you get the Pangaea thesis. This is maps that depict it. Pangaea was when the continents were closer together, and something caused the tectonics to break and they started drifting away from each other. These are maps that show it.
One more. Would this be prior to the part of the Earth that is, people believe that is the moon? Would this be prior to that or after that part was taken off?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I wouldn't be able to answer that question with precision. I'm only able to show what they have.
Okay.
Okay. So these are some of the maps. All right. So who is going to hoax over 20,000 stones? Let's just ask the question. All right. So first sources. The stones were seen in 1535 before Javier Cabrera. This is one of the discoverers of the modern times of the stones. Francisco Pizarro, all right, the well-known conquistador and colonel of the Spanish invading military, had a man named Father Simón de Albata who described the stones, and some were said to be taken back to Spain. Here's your source, all right, your Spanish source. Take a screenshot of it. Take a picture of it. I'm going to go through all the sources I have on it. The stones were found by other people besides and before Javier Cabrera, including an Inca in 1571 named Juan de Santa Cruz, all right, Pachacuti Lancu, who wrote of the others who found stones in a province called Chincha. The source, Juan de Santa Cruz, Pachuti, all right, Lamicue, Relation de Antiquities d'esta Reino del Peru, all right, 1571. All of these sources are searchable online. And if you go to Google Scholar, you can download some of them in PDF files. Others you have to buy. Take a screenshot of it, so that you don't call me a false sorcerer or a sorcerer. Archaeologist Alejandro Pezia Acerto of the National Archaeological Department of Peru published his finding on the authenticity of the stones, even recording extinct animals depicted on the stones. All right, there's your source. Next. Ryan Drum, an American biologist, studied the stones at high magnification and found no evidence of forgery. This is his own article on it, the Cabrera Rocks. The Peruvian Times did an article about the surgical techniques on the stones. Some of the surgical techniques were not even known at the time. So they were citing another doctor. I'm going to give you the doctor's source. Famous paleopathologist R.L. Moody studied the stones and had this to say: I believe it to be correct to state that no primitive or ancient race of people anywhere in the world had developed such a field of surgical knowledge. Their surgical attempts are truly amazing and include amputations, excisions, trephining, bandaging, bone transplants, cauterization, and other less evident procedures. So this is a paleopathologist. A pathologist is a doctor who studies pathology of disease or processes, and he studies paleopathology. So he's giving his credence to it. All right, let me skip over this because I'll come back to this. This is for Dr. Reggie when he was stating that the Moors were white or Europeans. All right, I got to address it. This is just for the integrity of protecting all black history, period. Regardless of cultural affinity. The disunity is based on mass misinformation. And so let me go back so I can give you the source of this. All right. Let me make sure I put it in here. That's budget mean. All right, this is on a book called The History of the Moroccan Empire. And these are some of the people I'm going to mention who were coming from Europe who were describing what they saw in West Africa when they saw it. All right? Captain Braithwaite, all right? That's one of the captains who were coming into the west coast of Africa. All right? He was describing Muli Ishmael, who was dying at the time. All right? And these are extracts from the book. This is actually from my book, The Lost Aboriginal Heritage. I have full pages on this, so you can get Braithwaite's quotes. All right? So he's describing Muli Ishmael. He says his distemper towards his latter end, distemper means his health condition. And you can see he was using the Latin where you have the F where the S is actually supposed to be, or currently is. So the latter end became so nauseous that no one could bear the room where he lay, so he was dying. Notwithstanding all the art of perfumes, he was ever consulting physicians before his death, for the Moors never believed any distemper or disease incurable and have more faith in physic or health than any people in the world. All right? Then he describes the death of Muli Ishmael and the placing of his son on the crown. Look at what he says. Bashar Imfael, a chief Negro with the Negroes of the court and guards, seated Muli Hamid upon the throne of his father, adored him and declared him king. The city of Minkanez is immediately commanded by the palace where all the cannon are kept, and for fear of being plundered by the blacks was obliged readily to submit. So you had Negroes seating a king, a Moorish king. How could he be white, Reggie? How could they be white? I'm just saying, these are your European sources stating it. So these were African people too. Another group with another cultural affinity. Period. That's what it was. All right? Who had rulership in Europe. Look, this is Muli Ishmael, who I was just describing, who was dying. And Budget Minkin, in his book, The Moorish Empire, says, in his correspondence with Louis XIV, he styled himself conqueror of 11 kingdoms. Colonel Scott wrote of this sovereign in 1842, deriving his information from native sources, that he appears to have been the most enlightened of the Moorish kings or emperors, as all the public works I have seen are stated to have been built in his time. What wonder that Ishmael's first act at an audience was to prostrate himself and loudly thank God for bringing the kings of the earth to his feet. Or that he declared Spain to be committed to the care of women and described the King of England as an old woman, a slave to his parliament. He describing how he looked. As for the description of Muli Ishmael and his power that was held over Europe, we take Busnell's commentary, which is found in this book. Busnell describes him as black, with fiery eyes, a strong voice, and greatly giving to jumping. That sounds like somebody black. Being remarkably agile, even when in past middle age. I'm just saying. Stop promoting false history. Check it out. Last points before we get out of here. What time is it? Last point before we get out of here.
22.
I don't want to lose you. Now, it's important to highlight that we have to be students of history. What I'm showing here is the world 13,000 years ago, from 13,000 years ago to 48,000 years ago. During that time, we had a different pole. Now we have the North Pole, South Pole, spin poles, magnetic poles. We had a different pole. The pole that we're on now is here. How do we know when the poles switch? You go through a science called hysteresis, where we take ice, dredges of the ice, and we look at specific lava formations. Keep in point, lava formations, where the magnetite and the iron in the alignment of those lava formations is angled at a different pole. Iron aligns to the magnetic pole. So right now, if we shifted the magnetic pole, the people who came after us, who have a new pole, would know that in our time, we had a pole that was different from theirs by studying the crust of the earth. Okay? Just like a good example of it is, you ever do the experiment in high school where you put the magnet on a piece of paper and you throw the iron fillings on it, and then it makes the little, it represents the field energy around the magnet. The earth is the same way. It has a field energy, and we call that the earth's magnetic field. So 13,000 years ago, the pole was not where it is right now in Greenland, or above Greenland and the prime meridian. It was in a place called Aquatok Island in Canada. Now, what did this create? All right, it created North America being under an ice sheet for almost 37,000 years. That's why you find woolly mammoths and saber-toothed tigers under ice at certain points. All right, they found these animals preserved. All right, the equator was running through North Africa and Europe, so there were no white people in Europe. There were no Neanderthals that they're trying to propose. All right, and the equator ran straight through South America in the area that we're talking about where these stones were. So 13,000 years ago, you had a pole shift, all right, that went from this pole to this pole. That's a magnetic field shift. Anybody ever saw the movie 2012? They tried to depict this. What would happen? If the poles would shift, immediately it would cause the plates to smash into each other. That would cause volcanic eruptions. That's how you get fossils. All right? The ice would melt drastically, creating tsunamis, the floods of history. All right? And you would, people, if they had foreknowledge of it, would have to migrate to safer points. If they had foreknowledge of it. If not, they would end up being, would dying. All right? So in the presentation, one of the things we show is that the Smithsonian found a black body in Trenton buried under ice and gravel, which means that there were people who got trapped in these, cataclysms as they were happening. But my point of showing this is the next slide, which is the pyramids in South America in Bolivia, Tiwanaku, which have the oldest calendar drawings of extinct animals in astronomy. All right, it's called the Gate of the Sun, Gateway of the Sun. All right. The pyramid is aligned 180 degrees perfectly to a pyramid in China. All right. Now we know the natives of here, the oldest name that we have for them is the Shi. This pyramid is standing in a place called the Xi'an province. Not only is it there and they're 180 degrees perfectly apart, they're 180 degrees perfectly apart, aligned to the pole that's 48,000 years old. So somebody had to build the pyramids 48,000 years old in Tiwanaku and the pyramids in China to align them to give some type of latitude and longitude about the current pole, because that's why how and why they aligned the pyramids like they did. 12,000 years ago, that shift occurred. All right. So I'm just trying to give an example of how these ancients used latitude, longitude, astronomy, and polar science to engineer what they're engineering. Now, it's also important to understand with clarity that the Earth's magnetic field is caused by its spinning. That's a simple point, okay? If there is an irregularity or shift in the pole, it's because of something that's happening with the energy of the planet. And so we've had cyclical disasters called magnetic pole shifts.
Right.
That lead to cyclical other disasters called floods, tsunamis, whatever. This has happened, and my point is, human beings have been alive when these things have happened, and they've recorded that particular information. But highlighting the point that there's no pyramid that could possibly be 48,000 years old on the planet as far as what white people have told you. But this information comes from Karl Monk, who wrote the books on the pyramids and their antiquity, and he highlighted the fact that the pyramids in South America have to be at least 48,000 years old. That's antiquity. All right? So now what we're starting to scratch our head on is, how come you can't learn this at Temple University? How come you can't learn this at UPenn? How come you can't learn this in public school miseducation? The reason why you can't learn this is because it doesn't fit into the model of what they want to present to you for their socio-political objectives. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. We're not having it. All right? So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to do a part 2 for this tomorrow when I go to New York to end it. But I will say this. Let's see if we can get through to the indigenous part of the closing of the conversation. I will say this. All right. I will say this. Yes, sir. If we are going to have a conversation about history, if we are going to have a conversation about what's going on in our community, if we're going to have a conversation about the applicable nature of history to reality, we got to go all the way back to the beginning of what I said. Every black organization needs to be an indigenous organization setting up a plebiscite so they can rebuild their institutions based on international law. Otherwise, they are wasting their time. They cannot circulate the dollars and the finances inside of their institutions without setting up a structure to do so. And so what Arna is offering is saying, whatever y'all black institutions are out there, if y'all want a template for how to do that, we're willing to give it to you so you can do that. Otherwise, you will not be able to improve the economics of your organizations, your systems, because you will constantly go to the foreign venue to register your businesses, to get taxed, to have or solve your political problems, your judicial problems, whatever they may be, and it's time for that to change if you want to make some progress. If you're not going to have that conversation, you're going to stay in debt, you're going to form institutions that are vulnerable to economic entities that can encumber them, and you will keep the cycle of poverty going on in our community. And if we keep the cycle of poverty, broken institutions, broken families going on, then hell, yeah, we can just have parties about black history all we want for the next 5,000, 6,000 years. But nothing will get done. And so if we want to do something, we have to look at the plot to subvert anything that changes the way that we're educated, which can possibly change the way that we deal with economics. And that is at the core of the problem with the institutions, the operations inside of our society. They are literally controlled economically and structurally by foreigners. And if we want to have a conversation about changing that, we can have a real conversation about changing that. If we're not going to have that conversation, what type of conversation are we actually having? We're not having any conversation. So we need to have those conversations in order to make things better for our community, and that's what we are offering in Arna. We're saying, let's start the conversation, and let's move into how to protect our properties, how to protect our wealth, how to protect the coming generation so we have something to pass on to them. All right. But if you're losing all your wealth, the IRS is taking it from you, you're losing your property to mortgages, you got bad credit, you got all these things going on, you're not building any institutions, you're sending your children off to other people's institutions to support the institutions that they already have, it's not looking good for you. We can integrate, right? And we've shown what integration can do when we have the wrong mindset about how we interface. You're going to interface like we've been doing, domino effect. All right? So we need labor, we need services, we need products that have integrity, all right? And we can only do that through institutions. This little way of just creating something, somebody got this elixir, somebody got this water, we got no review boards, no credentialing, no nothing. It creates madness. And nobody respects what we're doing, even though it might be a good idea. It has to have oversight. But we don't want order. We want to do it freedom, democracy, it's consciousness, it's ox, I got this new. Nobody have tested that. We don't know if it's safe. We don't know if the process is safe. So we gotta improve the things that we're doing. And we can't make the black community a playground for anybody who wants to start any foolishness. It becomes a playground, and now they come in, they steal the money, they do all these other things. So I'm going to close up and say I'm opening the floor for Q&A, and then we'll open the floor for announcements so Troy can close out the meeting, and the floor is open to everybody here to ask any question. If you're online and you want to ask questions, I'll take the questions, and we want to make them brief so we can get out of here. So here, any questions, statements?
Yeah, Chief, I have a
Anybody?
question for you.
Yes, sir.
You talked about economics as what we need to solve the black problem. I have a proposition for you. What is the role of spiritual enmity or spiritual opposition in black history?
Okay, when you say spiritual enmity,
Spiritual meaning like Ifa, religion, and your religion or whatever it is that you practice, whatever it is, whoever's practicing Hebrew, whatever, Kemet, is in opposition to each other because they're dealing with different energies and elements. How do you reconcile that with your economic plan?
well, I reconcile it because economics is dealing with formulas that actually work. So I'll give you an example. It's all bullshit to me when people start talking to spirituality, because if you have so much spirit, you will blow your goddamn enemies away. So show me the Ifa oracle or priest that can deal with J.P. Morgan Chase, that can deal with the Rockefellers, that can deal with anything. You can throw your cowrie shells on your cousin and cause them to break their leg, then you can get some of these white folks.
I agree
don't
with
want
you,
to.
Chief.
Hold on, let me finish. You asked me the question, so I'm answering.
I agree with you.
Let me finish. So I don't want to hear nothing about a black spiritual system that can't defeat an enemy. And as far as I know, in Nigeria right now, you can go to Nigeria right now, and it's chaos on the ground, and I don't see no priest putting that shit in order. So I don't want to hear nothing about your priesthood until it can put something in order. Black spirituality in America specifically is fraudulent. So my economic plan will put energy, since y'all got all these netters and ancestors supposed to represent energy. So economy represents energy. And if economy represents energy, it's real spirituality. Because now you have the ability to immediately take the energy to transform your life. So I think we have a false concept of spirituality because spirituality is supposed to be tied to real-time change. And so if whatever these priests are, whoever they are in any bank, I don't care who they are, I'm not saying that they're fraudulent. I'm saying if you can't change the immediate circumstances of your people in light of the opposition, then you're fraudulent. And I'm saying that your beefs between each other are ridiculous. As a people who are having enlightened discussions, you can have enlightened discussions where you present facts. Like I disagree with some people. I don't have personal beefs with these people. I just disagree with the methodology that they use or a fact that they put out. So what do? I do a presentation and I present the facts, and then now they can be vetted, they can be looked at. But a beef, how can you actually have a beef with each other that's actually real? That is a hangover from slavery. It has nothing to do with a real beef. So the adverse energy that you see in the black community is because people don't respect it, and so now it becomes a stomping ground for set tripping. Mine is better than yours, so I want to get the group to follow mine because I can't use it for anything else. You follow me? So now I'm going to beef with you and try to put your system down and hold mine over yours because now I'm after the people. But you're really not after the people to do anything, you just want them to follow something stupid that can't transform their life. And so why would I talk to a priest or someone who can't deal with the IRS? Do a voodoo ritual on the IRS. I want to see the IRS collapse. Now, if you don't have a voodoo ritual for the IRS, I do. Wait, I do. I got a voodoo ritual for the IRS. It's called an affidavit. It's called some other instrument that I'm going to infuse with ancestors to blow this shit up.
Can hear what I'm saying right now?
Yeah, they could if you want.
When you gonna click that off?
He got to click that off. I don't know how to do it. We can click that off right now. But let the brother finish. Go ahead, brother. Oh, go on.
Chief, my point to you is, what we don't understand is this is a spiritual battle. And what you're saying, I love what you're saying, and that's why I'm a member of this plebiscite. coming to meetings for over a year. I agree with what you're saying, Chief, but you don't understand the spiritual battle that's out there. First of all, let me reiterate something. The gods are on the side of the white man. Period. If you don't understand that, then you know you're not even started yet. When you go out and talk about J.P. Morgan and all these people are connected with the God system. That's why they're kicking your ass.
They're not connected with no gods. They have become
Chief,
gods themselves.
No, Chief, you don't know this. These people
Show
are
me the gods
working-
they connected with.
I'm
Show them
telling
to
you.
me. Show them the God.
No,
Bring the
not-
God in the room.
I'm talking about Deadline, and these guys are working against you.
There's no God working against me. Show me the gods that are working against me. Listen, let me make this plain. We all can have different ideas about what spirituality is. If we sit right here and take a definition, what's your idea of spirit?
I'm talking about Oshun, Ogun, all these people
what?
that you talk about. These people are not working on your behalf, Chief.
Okay, if they're not working on my
They're not.
behalf, let me break something down to you. If whatever your spirits are, your spirit gods, whoever they are, if they're not working on my behalf, I would have been dead. I'm the only nigga in history that had a terrorist organization named after his organization. Ever in history. Ever. The nigga that's talking to you. I've been all over this country, all over, and white folks, listen, Homeland Security was on my block 2 weeks ago. So, but they didn't get me yet. So I must know something. So all I'm saying is, I'm not in disagreement that spirituality exists. I'm just saying niggas is front. That's all I'm saying. And so we can have this conversation forever. White folks are no more godly than black folks. It's the system that you're using. You can call on all kinds of spirits that you want. But if you don't call on the right energy, that's all it is, you can't get the right output. So let's de-spook it. If it deals with energy, then everything is spirit.
Because Chief, even in your organization right now, right, you got people that are educated, they're smart, they're intelligent, disciplined, eat at your table, but their spirit is against you.
So what?
And you can't even tell that.
I have to be able to tell.
Because they walk right into your house and dine with you and they attack you.
Good.
And then you're looking at somebody else and you talking about this person is not this. You don't even know what's going on in the spirit.
If you say
So
I don't know what goes on in the spirit,
Yeah.
if you can say that about me, then that means that they could obstruct my operations, and they can't.
You have protection, I agree with that. But
I
Chief,
give up a
let
suggestion,
somebody
you know,
go.
and I'm gonna say the same thing every time somebody come here to do a lecture.
Go ahead, bro.
It's a big circle, y'all real informed people that give lectures all over the place, up in Harlem, in the conscious community,
Wherever they
blah,
may
blah,
be.
blah, right? Why don't y'all get together, everybody, go somewhere for a month or 40 days, just like they did in Nicene Council, because the results of the Nicene Council, they took that book and went and ruled the world with it.
Exactly.
You get all the like minds, all these intelligent people together. They take off all the ankhs and fezzes and everything, everybody. Go in there with tank tops and ball shorts.
I know,
Right?
That's what we need.
And a few women to cook. Come back in 40 days with a plan this thick. You see what I'm saying? That we can all follow no matter what we believe in and all that.
Now let me ask you a question. Out of all of the leaders, and I'm gonna just put myself out there, I already called for. I've been calling for it for 6 years. Who else do you know that's calling for it? That's young. That's in our group.
I haven't heard nothing. I thought it was my idea.
It is. It is.
Well, I'm gonna say that at every lecture. Hopkins talking about having a lecture up here every day in Black History Month.
Right.
That's going. You know the names. They all gonna come.
Right.
And I'm gonna say that shit to all of them.
Yeah. And that's the end all. We started our conversation off today with that as the premise of the information.
And this day and age, white people are running stuff because they have control over weaponry. I don't care what nobody else say. So unless you can develop a virus or something that will drop them and not drop us,
Well, we have scientists. I ain't gonna name them, but we have scientists who worked in these programs who developed the weapons who are black.
they forgot about yellow fever.
So my point is, we have everything that we need as a people. It just needs to be brought
I
together
need
in
to go
critical
to that
mass.
island for 40 days or whatever and get together and argue in there without us seeing it.
Right.
You
I
know what I'm
agree.
saying?
I agree.
I
I
think
agree.
40 days will do it.
I agree. Well, I agree with you 100%. And look, your sentiment, if you pay attention, is the predominant sentiment amongst the people in the community. your sentiment. The sentiment of, if you got some people who got some influence, let them go in private, put that thing together, bring it back, let us review it, and let's implement it. Period.
It's hard to follow everybody, and you get pointed in different directions, trying to listen to different people. But I want to listen to everybody. But there's so much cross-talk and disagreements and unnecessary beefs. Everybody's accusing everybody else of being an agent and all this shit. You don't know what
I know.
It's all this nonsense.
No, that's true.
Get together.
You're an agent.
Go somewhere where there's no boxing gloves, no weapons, nothing, just food. And get it right, and then come back to us.
Hey, bro, I'm with you 1,000%. And that is the only solution. Go ahead.
Okay, so, all right. I'm just one, I'm the type that when it comes down to the business piece, it's like, all right, so putting that into functional. The question would be, when you say bring the leaders together, who are we speaking of? My thing is name people, name individuals. Let's contact those individuals. Let's put together
He knows
that
what I'm
type
talking
of a
about.
thing.
Yeah, I know.
I
He
don't know
knows
what you're
it.
talking about.
Well, he's speaking directly to me, so he knows
okay,
I know.
all right,
Yeah.
cool. So I mean, my thing is that get together those individuals, but the thing is that a lot of times you can't have him call them together. It will have to be someone outside of them.
Bingo.
That is the issue.
I'm
You
going
can't-
to
he
every
can't do
lecture
it.
that comes here
It would
in
have to be
February.
someone
I'ma
like
say the
myself,
same
like
thing.
yourself, to actually call those individuals
I'm gonna say it
together
in polite. I'm
and
gonna say it
create-
pathetic. I'm gonna say it
and create the
all.
setting.
Whoever. That
So-
shit gotta stop, dog. People laughing at us.
So let's
Yeah.
talk. Let's talk
Yeah.
about
Laugh.
that.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
talk about that.
What's that?
Let's talk about doing that. 'Cause
No,
putting it
oh,
together is
listen,
something.
my sentiment is, I'm just a person amongst the community. I will echo what this brother is saying. I've been echoing it since I started on it. That's the purpose of starting
I
on
know
it.
you did.
Or share, let me finish. All right, let's have order. So I've been echoing that sentiment, and I will continue to echo that sentiment. When I get amongst them, when I went to the conference, what did I say on the stage? I didn't even teach this. This is why I'm teaching this now. I got up there and talked about what we need to form, and that's all I'm going to do. If you invite me to a lecture, I'm going to say the same thing. I'm going to sound like a broken record. And so that's my duty. And so if we all chime that, and then for the people who are working together, y'all make your operations more efficient, we're doing what we're supposed to do. And so that's the duty that we have incumbent upon us, is be efficient where you are, call for the unity, and act in unity.
We got divine experts in
Bro,
every area.
bro.
You could come out of there with
Yeah.
a book. It'd be a chapter
Bro,
on
bro,
health,
bro,
chapter
bro,
on business, all of that.
Bro, that's not gonna happen.
It's happened before.
I'm telling you, it's not gonna happen.
It's happened before.
Yes, sir. All right, but before y'all ask
Chief
questions or
President already
whatever,
called that already. The Aboriginal Summit is supposed to do
These
that.
cats
Everybody's
is
supposed
already
to come out.
talking. They're not going to get it jumped off. We
Well,
ain't got to beg. We got to ask. If 100 people say it in every
People
lecture
who's
in
gonna
the
solve
crowd,
this issue is not even
they
here
ain't got
right
no
now, man.
choice.
What are you talking about?
the people who solve this issue are here, because we actually work in the community.
Because you don't understand the spirit. You don't understand the spirit.
Who doesn't?
The people kicking your ass in the spirit world, you don't understand. And you over here talking about solutions.
Listen,
Solution. They're
that
gonna
sounds
keep
crazy.
obstructing your solution because you don't know who's fighting you. You don't know who your enemy is. It's that simple. Every time you build up a community of people who you think is for you, it just happened 2 weeks ago.
Look what
In
the
honor.
look what the movies hit the 300 colors.
There's an honor in
movies did.
Chicago right now.
It started a
talking
rampage
about
in the black community
Chief
across the
Ali
world.
is this,
That's
this,
because
this,
all of
this,
them
this,
came
this, this.
together
Why are they doing
to make
that?
That's not the first time it happened.
Why
They
are they
don't
doing
say
that? No, but they're disrupting the energy in the system. Why are they doing
They're
that?
not disrupting anything.
Because the spirit is not right.
No, you are giving. Listen, every time we have a community and you give energy to dissidents,
Nobody's
right,
doing into it.
they're not a threat.
They're spreading the energy. No, Chief, they're not a threat to you, but they're disrupting the unity that you want to bring together.
They're not disrupting the unity. Because anybody who is weak, who let a parasite invade,